Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Had a Heart-Stealing Quirk? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Izuku had always been observant, a trait that he had gotten from his father at a young age. So it was normal for him to know things that most people didn't know, realize things that others didn't realize. The youngest edition of the Midoriya family had known from a young age that there was no such thing as fair in their world, at least not in the way that it was portrayed. Fair meant everyone had equal rights, that everyone was treated equally and without discrimination and favoritism, which was an utopic idea. In their world, those with strong quirks were held high, were given everything, status, money and more. While those with weak quirks, or those like Izuku, who were quirkless, only got kicks and hateful looks instead. Their world was ruled by the strong, and the weak were left to fend for themselves. Just like Izuku had been doing for the last 8 years of his life. Life had been cruel to him ever since his father had died, and even worse after he had lost his mother, so he had known too well that life wasn't fair. The mindset of normal could change almost everything. Dreams could be crushed. I'm sorry, but you won't be getting a quirk. Being a hero is impossible for you. Friends could become enemies. You can read Izuku also as Deku. What does it mean? Good for nothing, useless puppet that can't do anything by itself. You think that you can stand up to me, you are nothing but a quirkless freak. Weak. Pathetic. Piece of thrash. Useless. And he knew that loved ones could leave, with or without wanting to. Once upon a time, there was a boy born with the weight of the world upon his shoulders, and the kindness for every single living in his heart. Can I still be a hero, mommy? Izuku baby, you can be whatever you want as long as you believe and work hard for it. Izuku. Katsuki. Go with Izuku. No. Both of you. We gotta go. No. My mommy was there. We can't leave them behind. Mom. They are as good as dead. Mommy. Izuku. Izuku took in a deep breath as he saw the train slow down and stop at his destination. He put on his earphones, listening to the newest report as he started to run towards where the latest villain attack was taking place. The Greenette had already known about where the villain attack was almost 10 minutes ago thanks to the giant blonde, who had sent the location to him, but he still kept on listening to the reports, knowing that the blonde had yet to come there. Thanks to his small body, he was able to squish between people and got towards the front of the crowd in no time, his eyes searching for Utakayama, but just like how it had said in the reports, she was nowhere to be seen. It was to be expected, he guessed, for her to be late to her debut fight, just to come in at the last minute to gain everyone's attention onto herself. Izuku pitied the other two who were working so hard to keep the villain in check, knowing what would happen in a couple of minutes as he took out his notebook to at least be able to do something useful while he waited for the older woman to arrive. He ignored the fans which were screaming next to him and focused on Backdraft. The way that the hero easily controlled the water and stopped anyone from being injured was amazing, and the way that he must have worked to achieve that kind of control was even more amazing. But where did the water come from? It was obvious that they came out of the hose spigots that he had in place of his hands, but how did the man create that much water? Was it from him? Did he turn the molecules in the air into water? Did he manifest it from nothing? Was it real water? Or something that was similar to water? Was it drinkable? If it was, it would have been really useful for certain missions. Or was the liquid? He got out of his theory session thanks to Kamui Woods, whose voice boomed in front of the villain. Illegal use of powers during rush hour and robbery resulting in bodily injury. You are the incarnation of evil. Izuku fought back the urge to face palm at that and let out a small sigh. The hero was surely going to regret this after the fight. He watched as the man grew his branches towards the villain and clutched his notebook and pen, being excited to take note of just how much weight the hero's branches could carry and how much more they could grow. His attention, along with the attention of the civilians, was short-lived however, as a blur of purple and tan entered their vision, kicking the villain in the face and making them easily pass out and fall to the ground. The giant woman had a purple and beige-colored bodysuit on, which was accented with orange stripes. It looked good on her, and managed to transform the normally too lazy to get out of bed woman into a stunning hero. The jacket on her back, that said, "Feral Demon," however, made him let out a small chuckle. The same jacket that his auntie had died in, the same jacket which had made villains cover away in fear for years, again and again. It was not a name suited for heroes, but after all, Mitsuki Bakugo had chosen the name to make the villains cover away in fear, and it had worked in the end. He wondered what Katsuki would have thought about it. Anger? Happiness? Nostalgia? He wasn't really sure, and he guessed that it didn't matter that much. Someone bumped into him, making him stagger a bit before looking to the side. He was met with the sight of photographers rushing to take photos of the female hero as soon as she turned around, which made him scoff. "Perverts," he spat out, before bending down to pick up his fallen notebook. His phone rang, informing him that there were 30 minutes till class. He turned a bit, and smirked before putting his hand through the water, directing it at the perverts that had been trying to take his Naisans photos and drenching them in the process. He smirked and turned around as he heard one of them curse loudly that his goods were now ruined. Izuku put his notebook in his pocket with a satisfied expression, beaming from the inside to get home as soon as possible so that he could write down everything that he had seen during the fight. He fastened his pace even more and started heading towards the train station, not wanting to be late to class. Izuku slowly put down his backpack, sighing as soon as he saw his table. The cruel words were nothing new, and neither were the spider lilies at the corner of his table. But it still made his insides churn with nausea. A part of him wanted to laugh because of how dumb all of them were. They had been bullying him for almost 1 year now, and they still weren't able to find something else to do. It was somewhat an exact copy of his last 2 schools. Another part of him, a part that he couldn't get rid of no matter how many times he tried, wanted to go ahead and give the world what it wanted, to do what the spider lilies implied, and to just throw everything that he had been working for down the drain. He took out a wet napkin out of his backpack and started to clean his table before taking the spider lilies, to put them outside whenever he had the time to do so. He wanted to scream, to yell, to cry, but he didn't. His hands shook at the bottom side of the table. "It's no wonder that your parents chose death over a freak like you." He took in a deep breath before wiping over the text, making it become smudged just like the other hateful ones. It was somewhat easier to erase them when they were smudged like that. The door slammed open, making him look up at the woman that was supposed to be his teacher. "All right, class, sit down," she said cheerfully, and they did so. It was somewhat strange how someone acted so cheerful towards them could bear so much hate towards him. "Today, we won't be beginning a new theme in our books, because we will be talking about your study choices." Izuku groaned as all of them screamed with joy, another reason for all of them to bully him. "I am sure that almost all of you, well, who am I kidding, all of you want to be a hero." Another cheer from his classmates. "So, you guys will be talking with the counselor for the whole day, one by one." She turned around to the board and started writing the list of students on the list. "Till then you will be filling out your career guidance forms, and after you are finished, you can leave to go home." Izuku seriously wished that he was one of the first ones that was going to be talking with the counselor. But of course, as each word was written on the board one by one, he knew that he couldn't ever be that lucky. "So, Izuku Midoriya," the old man began. It was obvious that the man didn't want to have to do anything with him. He guessed that the feeling was mutual. "Yes, sir," he said, trying to load a little bit of positive emotion into his words. His mother had not raised him to make others uncomfortable, and neither had she raised an unrespectful kid. "So, I hope that you have an idea of where you want to go, and what you want to be because of your," he made a gesture with his hand, "disabilities?" Izuku did not care if the man was trying to be polite or something, and he did not care that he had just met the man. He hated him already. "Yes, sir." "May I see your paper?" Izuku gave it to the man, smirking to himself when the man started coughing. "Hero course you?" "Yes, sir." The man sighed before taking off his glasses to look at him. The look in his made something crawl inside of Izuku. He hated it. "Kid, you gotta be more realistic, you know? UA does not take in quirkless kids, and to want to become a hero on top of that. It is madness." You won't even survive the school's entrance exam. With all due respect, Sir Dash, Izuku looked at the man and wondered if he was actually thinking or if he was just saying normal logic of the people of their century. Izuku guessed that he was glad that he had a different way of thinking. The rule that said quirkless kids cannot enter was lifted last year, and being a hero does not mean that you need to have a strong quirk, it means that you are smart and dash. He wanted to keep going but was cut off by the man. Which is another problem, your files are not that innocent, always getting into fights, changing foster houses again and again because of how much of a brat you are. There is also the money problem, your parents are dead. Izuku flinched at that. Who will be paying the bills for your books, your school uniform, your meals? Izuku took a deep breath. I plan on going only if I get a scholarship dash. You do realize that they only give scholarship to those who exceed in every aspect of the tests? Both the written and the practical part, do dash. Sir, they give scholarships to the best students that exceed in both exams in total. He said calmly and watched as the man scoffed at him. And? What? You seriously think that a quirkless orphan kid with problems can pass them and become number one? The look in the man's eye told him how much he didn't believe what he had said, but Izuku had never cared about what the man thought anyway. The man sighed and tossed Izuku's documents towards him. With grades like these, I had thought that you might have been a bit clever, but I guess that I was wrong. All quirkless are the same. You are dismissed. Thank you, sir. Izuku exclaimed and got out of the small meeting room, trying his best to not slam the door. He had never needed for the man to say that he could go to UA anyway. He had expected for the man to laugh at him like his teachers had done. This was way better than how he had played the events in his head. At last, you guys finished up, freak? Izuku groaned from the inside and hoped that his ears had deceived him, but when he spared a glance to his side, he found Nagaoka staring back at him, his three-man crew standing right after him. The boy nodded towards Izuku, and Izuku felt one of them grab him with his thorned hands, while one of them took his paper. Huh? Are you f-king kidding me? UA Hero Course, the boy next to Nagaoka said. Do you want to die that soon? Dude, he must want to commit suicide in a way that everyone will remember his sorry butt. All three of them silenced as Nagaoka raised his hand. I actually have a future planned out in front of me, Izuku. You know what that means? Izuku hated him with everything he had, but he was going to be a hero and he seriously did not need to get any other black spots on his file. That means that I need to act according to it. If you actually committed suicide like that, it might cause people to want to know what happened. Even thought I doubt that there will be any police officer that would actually care. If someone actually comes here, watches the CCTV records, it will ruin the life of many others. Izuku felt the thorns dig deeper into his wrists. We can't have a little bug tainting our image now, can we? Izuku scoffed from the inside. It would only be fair, after the last 3 years. All of them looked up at the sound of heels hitting the floor. What are you boys doing? Is Midoriya being a nuisance again? The way that the boys put on a smile creeped Izuku out. Were the teachers seriously that dumb? Oh no, miss. We were just having a friendly talk about where we want to go next year, but I guess that we can continue it on the way home. Well then, Izuku, don't cause any more troubles. See you later, boys. The woman was gone as fast as she had come. And that confirmed it. She was both dumb and ignorant. The thorned hands took a hold of his wrist once again and started dragging him out and away from the school. Nedzu plus recovery girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM. NKM. SKVK. The police, NT. ST. 1 Ya. Ma. Ta. TI. OU. MO. DK. EK. KK. RS. MS. KJ. HS. FT. ST. Teach. KB. MM. My. HS. Ya. 1B. NM. ST. TT. Ye. SK. YK. KT. JH. Other students, MT. NHT. MH. Pro Heroes, STGT. YTML. RUM. KH. EFMJ. KSO. TTFG. Training Camp ARC. R2PB. TSR. YCT. SSM. KI. 8 Bullets ARC. SSN. KBG. Villains. Higres. TCS. IFO. HTT, TTD, Cassia. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that hate Izuku or have yet to meet him, or in some situations those who don't care about him. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him way too much for their liking. The dark ones, XX, are his friends or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. The greenette let out a soft whine, as Nagaoka kicked him once again after he had fallen, and did his best to cover his stomachache. There had been a time when he had tried to defend himself against the three of them, but every time that he had, another rumor had manifested, how he had, supposedly, broken the hand of Nagaoka when he had just dogged the other's hit, and things that sounded more and more ridiculous every time. Now, after how much his record had been painted with these rumors, and how it threatened the possibility of him getting into UA, Izuku didn't even dare to think to fight against them, to even defend himself at the end of the day. He looked up at the boy with a glare. You know, Izuku, if I broke one bone the wrong way, just one bone, you might not even be able to walk. Ever. His eyes widened as a shiver went throughout his body. And you wouldn't be able to go to, hell, you might never walk again if I do it right. Who am I kidding? You might be stuck in a wheelchair all of your life. The greenette growled at the boy, only to gasp when Asari took a hold of his ankle tightly, thorns digging into his skin and drawing out blood. He bared his teeth like a cornered animal, and almost relaxed when the thorned kid let go of him, only for Nagaoka to kick him instead. Behave, is it that hard to understand? Even a dog would be smarter than you. The boy bent down and pulled him up by his hair, smirking. If you do behave, maybe someday your pretty face might be worth something in the end. Izuku only grinned, as he bit down on Nagaoka's hand even harder, making the older punch his face. The punch hadn't been that hard. Izuku could have hit the boy harder, but after his head also hit the wall, he felt blood trailing down the back of his head. He just hoped that he didn't get a concussion. Asari raised his head once again, and Izuku looked through squinted eyes, seeing two other figures coming towards them. He watched, trying to make sense of everything, as he saw something glint in Nagaoka's hands. He blinked a couple of times, trying to clear his vision and see things clearly as alarms went off in his head. Izuku couldn't do anything, he realized with a sinking feeling. He couldn't do anything because of the thorns that held on to his legs and wrists. He couldn't do anything because of how dizzy he felt and how blurry everything had gotten. And even if he hadn't been dizzy, even if the thorns hadn't been digging into his skin, he couldn't have done anything because it would risk his record. He watched as the figure in front of him raised the glinting long thing in front of him, which he guessed was a piece of metal, and squeezed his eyes shut. Izuku only opened his eyes after he heard the flash go off, and squinted his eyes once again, when blonde and spiky hair entered his vision from the side of the tunnel, getting closer and closer each passing second. What the FCK do to erase that? Nagaoka argued. I don't think so. Something fell to the floor, making him flinch as his headache got even worse. What the FCK? He is quirkless dash. Asari was cut off by the blood-eyed boy. Does that mean that he does not deserve to live? We were just messing around, not killing him. Yeah, well then you can say that to the authorities. If I send it to a certain person, I'm sure that they can spread it all around the world, then you won't be taken in by any workplaces even if you go to a foraging island as anything. Okay. What the hell do you want? If Izuku ever tells me that you guys kept on bullying him, you can expect to see this on your school's website. Izuku took in a deep breath and softly laid his head on the ground as he heard footsteps, getting quieter and quieter as time passed. He chuckled. SHT Izuku? Yep, that was Define Tally the angry Pomerian. Katsuki, he breathed out and leaned into the boy, letting him raise him up. Since when did you have contacts like that? He asked, softly smiling, and heard the other let out a soft chuckle. Takayama, of course, he has literally dated every kind of dude. There are some that are desperate for even a hello from her. Izuku hummed, as Katsuki draped his jacket over him, never letting go of him as he held him in his arms. "He," the blonde murmured, and Izuku hummed once again. "What else is new? I don't like seeing you like this, Izuku." Izuku let out a sigh, slowly blinking his eyes open as he looked at the blonde, the person who had been a part of his life for so long. "Why dash?" "No," he cut him off, knowing what Katsuki was about to say. "You don't even know how to fight." "Me not fighting does not mean that. I don't know how to fight." "FCKU." A silence took over them, as the boy with the explosive quirk let out a soft breath, letting Izuku change the topic. "Did you see Takayama Nei-san's hero outfit today?" Katsuki nodded. "It is not the same one. I'm wearing the original one when I get into UA. I'll see it on you then when we get in together. It'd have been all for nothing if you didn't nerd. What happened to you thinking that I couldn't make it? Never thought that, broccoli. It's just that." He lowered Izuku to the side, and he leaned against the wall as he went to pick up his notes that had fallen from his hand when he had been dragged away. "Your sacrificial streak is scaring me, along with your habit of collecting strays." "I don't have a sacrificial streak. And nor do I have a habit of collecting dash." Izuku stopped as he saw a sludge-like thing coming out of the sewers. "Kakin!" he screamed, dashing forward. "How wonderful, a medium-sized invisibility cloak." It all happened too fast, as he pushed the blonde behind him, shielding him from the villain. Hero Analysis, Volume 3, page 68, To Fight Liquid Villains. Izuku jumped forward, and picked up 2 glass bottles before raising one of it to his mouth, the opening towards the villain, reminding himself that the man had said, "a cloak." He watched as the villain rushed towards them, and Izuku clenched his eyes shut as it went in the bottle, and he closed the other end with the other bottle. Katsuki, who just now come out of his trance, rushed forward and picked up a cap from the floor, quickly securing it. "FCK, you have a suicidal and a sacrificial streak." "Shut up," Izuku said, and jokingly pushed the other, letting out a laugh, only for the blonde to put him in a headlock, ruffling his hair. Katsuki, stop it already," he whined, feeling better after how long he had rested in Katsuki's arms, as the blonde ruffled it even harder. A lid of the sewer flew up and Izuku squealed, taking a hold of the 2 bottles while the angry Pomeranian pushed him behind himself this time, hoping to protect him if anti-hing were to happen. "It's all right now, I am Dash." The man stopped mid-sentence as he took in their sight, and stared at the 2 of them with big eyes. Izuku did the same, as did Katsuki. He couldn't help it as his mouth fell open, so did the heroes. It would have seemed funny if Izuku hadn't been in that situation, the number 1 hero staring at him with his mouth open in something akin to amazement. Izuku was the first person to break out of the daze, and he ducked his head, suddenly feeling nervous and awkward. He took in a shaky breath and clenched the bottle harder. He jumped as the symbol of peace cleared his throat. "I think that you've got something there for me, young lad." "You are King All Might," Katsuki murmured, and Izuku let out a pft at the way that the man's expression changed to one filled with disbelief. Izuku shook his head to the side, as his mind caught up to what the man had said, and he clutched the bottles closer to his side. "Yes, it is I, All Might." Izuku was never gonna let Katsuki forget about this. Never. He stepped in front of the blonde. I have no idea why I am still holding on to it right now. I should give it over now, okay? Yeah, sorry. He started to pass the 2 bottles towards the man but stopped. If it is not that much trouble, can I ask something?" He had no idea where this was going. It felt as if he was threatening the hero, and he might have been as well. "I am running out of time, so if it is not that important, lad dash." Izuku cut off the man, bending in himself a bit. It is important. I really need to ask it, please." "Okay, then ask away, my boy." The smile that was sent his way was probably supposed to be reassuring, but Izuku knew better. He had spent too many years analyzing others, both their behavior and quirks, to know that the man was in a tight place. He took in a deep breath and forced himself to spit out the question that he was dying to spit out. Can an orphan, quirkless boy become a hero?" He shot and felt his breath leave him. Katsuki took a hold of his elbow and gave it a soft squeeze. Years ago, it might have felt threatening, but now it only felt reassuring some way, reminding him of how much the two of them had changed. It doesn't have to be a shining hero, it doesn't have to be someone in the top 10 or top 100, it's just, can I become a hero that saves those who were forgotten? Mother F. Kerr, someone murmured, and he looked at Katsuki's astonished face, before looking at All Might, or the man who had just been standing there. He guessed that it was a good thing that he had chosen to capture the villain in a blacked-out and painted glass, because he was sure that no one was supposed to see him like that. Mr. All Might? He asked slowly and flinched when the man coughed out blood. FCK. Izuku had the feeling that the blonde was simply counting all the curse words that he knew. The greenette left the blonde behind, and walked further, looking up at the man's face. How? The way that the man sighed had him backtracking a bit, feeling bad because of how fast the man had given up. This, he realized, was the man behind the mask, and that somehow made him trust and admire the man much more than he already did. All Might, or what was left of him, sighed and slowly lifted his t-shirt. How the hell? Izuku looked at Katsuki, seeing the astonished expression on his face before looking back at All Might. He slowly backed away a couple of steps, and placed the two bottles on the ground before stalking back towards the man. This is 5 years old. The strongest villain that you had fought in public was Toxic Chainsaw, but he didn't seem like a guy that can leave a scar like this. Wow, I guess you really know your stuff, don't you, lad? You are right, this was from a much stronger villain. He gave me this injury and I hardly survived after a lot of surgeries, at a high price. Right now I can only do hero work for max 3 hours. The man sighed and Izuku looked down on the floor. It was too cruel for one's dream to be stopped like this. He raised his head and saw the man sending him a sideway glance. I think that dash. The man stopped abruptly and Izuku scrunched his brows and tilted his head to the side as the man let go of his t-shirt, once again hiding the scars from wandering eyes. You might want chose to be a police officer than a hero. Hey! Katsuki interrupted, but didn't. Continue. It will be hard, you will be hated by the citizens for a very long time, maybe even till you are retired. Some of your peers will be mean, you might even be bullied at some point dash. I am already used to that, that is the one thing that wouldn't change wherever I go. All Might flinched and sighed. It was something that many forgot, the fact that there were those who were born without quirks, a thing that many others took for granted. But does that mean that I can be a hero? Izuku asked and the man sighed. Can you pass me the bottles, young lad? Izuku sighed and did as he was told. He knew that he should have passed the bottles to the man when he had first asked for it. It wouldn't have been different. The man's answer was going to be a no, just like everyone else, except his parents and Katsuki. Nothing had been impossible back when they had been alive. He wasn't sure what he had been expecting anyway. The man sighed and Izuku looked up to see the man, still there looking down at him. What are your names, kids? Izuku's face flushed red and he stammered, Ifumi Midoriya, sir, he said and passed the bottles. It's Katsuki Bakugu. Young Bakugu. Do you also plan on being a hero? All Might asked, and that was a no-go for the amazed look on Katsuki's face to disappear. You bet I do, the blonde said, a smirk taking over his features. We are both gonna get to Yui. Izuku, the blonde, put his arm over his shoulders, and felt grateful to heave him by his side as the boy with anger management issues gave his shoulder a firm squeeze. It will be a hard journey, and will take long to get there, but... The man let a warm yet awkward smile take over his features. I hope to see both of you at Yui next year, young lads. Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugu, the kids who took down an B-class villain by themselves without using their quirks and breaking the law. Those names won't be forgotten by me anytime soon. And then the symbol of peace was gone, leaving Izuku with the most dangerous weapon against the whole world. If Izuku fainted after that, and Katsuki ended up carrying him to his and Takayama's place, no one needed to know. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM. NKM. SKVK. The police, NT. ST. 1 Ya. Ma. Ta. TI. OU. MO. DK. EK. KK. RS. MS. KJ. HS. FT, st, teach, kb, my, hs, ya, 1b, nm, st, tt, ye, sk, yk, kt, jh. Other students, mt, nht, mh. Pro heroes, stgt, ytml, rum, kh, efmj, kso, ttfg. Training Camp ARC, R2PB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. FO, HTT, TTD, KC. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that hate Izuku or have yet to meet him, or in some situations those who don't care about him. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him way too much for their liking. The dark ones, XX, are his friends or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Katsuki carried the boy who had become like a brother to him over the years to his place, his mind buzzing and buzzing with, giving him a headache. He thought of how he had frozen when he had first come across the sludge villain, and how he had frozen while the nerd had took action without missing a beat. If he had been alone, would he have actually been able to protect himself against it? Would he have died? If Izuku hadn't been at his side, how would it have gone? He held the boy closer to himself, as the buzzing simply got louder and louder. Could Katsuki even become a hero? Did he even deserve to become one after everything he had done? Brat? Is that you? He let out an irritated sigh. FCK off, you hag. Same goes to you, my dear cousin. Dinner is in the fridge if you need it. He felt his eyebrow twitch as he went to the living room and softly placed the greenette on it, before going to the kitchen to check on dinner. This is F King takeout. Yeah. Which means I paid for it, you little SHT. At least be a little bit grateful. That's why you are so fat. You dash. He heard a loud sound come from her room, and fought back a smirk. That's what you get. Arg. He clicked his tongue, and went to her room, poking his head inside. Hey Yama. Do you know any first aid? She let out a deep sigh, before looking up at him from where she had fallen. You are AF King Nightmare, you know that cat? It's for Izuku. The blonde with lavender eyes quickly get up at that, before going to the bathroom to probably get the aid kit. Katsuki followed after her. Where is he? In the living room, I laid him on the couch. I think that he might have hit his head among other stuff. She hummed, and went to the living room with him tailing after her. The angry blonde let out an irritated air when he saw the greenette sitting up and pushing against the back of his head. He clicked his tongue when he saw the blood stain on the couch and went to sit next to him, taking his hand as you sat in front of them. She usually put on a brave and carefree front, which most mistook as idiocy. The media had already started to paint MT Lady as just a pretty face and an idiot looking for attention, but that was going to be the thing to make her enemies think light of her. That was going to be their biggest flaw. You was anything but dumb. Katsuki watched as she quickly checked over the bleeding spot before taking care of the marks on his ankles and wrist. He wished that he had gotten there earlier, wished that he had stopped them before they had pushed him down, but he was late. Katsuki was always late, and that fact cost him too much. I fell, I'm sorry. The blonde simply placed his best friend's head on his shoulder, taking a deep breath, not wanting to explode. They all knew that he hadn't simply fallen. Katsuki had been there, but they would wait till Izuku was ready. He had pushed before and had lost him before. He couldn't lose him again. Izuku. It was 10 p.m. when Izuku sneaked out to leave. He was lucky that their houses were not that far, and that he could get to his new foster house before 11 p.m. when Mr. Yashitora would come. He took out his notebook from his backpack and decided to go over them while getting lost in his mind. Mr. Yashitora was the best foster guardian that he had had in a very long time, The man had never hit him when he was sober. Perhaps that was because they didn't see each other that much, Izuku and the sober Mr. Yashitoru. Only in the mornings when Izuku would be busy with making breakfast for him and sometimes after school when he made dinner for the both of them. He had been slapped a couple of times when he had just come to the man's house, but Izuku knew that he had deserved them all the time. The man asked 6 things of him, had a total of 6 rules. The first one, don't make a mess. Second, don't waste food. Third, don't come out of your room between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Fourth, never talk back. 5, make breakfast and dinner every day. And lastly, never ask for more. Following the first 4 was easy, but sometimes his classmates became too much and Izuku ended up waking with a slap. The last one had taken time for him to fully comprehend at first. He hadn't understood what the man had meant when he had said, never ask for more, but had learned after a couple beatings from drunk Mr. Yashitoru. It was 10:47 when he finally reached his destination, and he quickly sneaked inside his room using the window. The house was the only things that Mr. Yashitoru's father had left him, and if it had been looked over properly, it might have been worth a fortune, but now no one wanted to buy it. Which left Yashitoru-san stuck there, stuck in a cycle of misery, drags, and alcohol. That was where Izuku came in, he supposed. In picture, Izuku was the man's foster kid, while behind the curtains he was simply a SLV for him, a maid, perhaps. Yashitoru knew him, knew how much he wanted to be a hero, how much he wanted to get into UA with scholarship, since they had talked about it before. He also knew that Izuku was walking on this ice. His record was a mess, the list of rumors about him was simply endless, and a simple fair threaded lie could ruin everything for him. Yashitoru-san was his last chance. If he failed, he would be sent to a different state, and he wouldn't be able to attend UE if that was to happen. He had to get into UE, he had to graduate, had to become a hero. If not for himself, then for his father, who had been a vigilante after being thrown out of a hero school, for his mother, who had never had enough courage to become a hero after how his grandmother had had to abandon her. And lastly for his grandmother, who he had never gotten to know, who no one had been able to save in the end. His father's and his mother's dreams, which had become his over the years, he would achieve them no matter what. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH, HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The police, NT, ST. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, R2PB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Yigres, TCS. IFO, HTT, TTD, KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that hate Izuku or have yet to meet him, or in some situations those who don't care about him. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him way too much for their liking. The dark ones, XX, are his friends or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. The green-haired boy hurriedly closed the door to his small hideout and smiled to himself. The familiar feeling of the adrenaline rush every single time that he sneaked out of Yashitoru-san's never seemed to change, as it always left his heart beating loudly inside his chest. The small hideout had somehow become more like a home, a sanctuary than any home that he had gone to after the death of his parents, even though it only had a small worn-out bed, along with a couple of small old beanbags. Izuku leaned his forehead against the door and sighed, a small smile taking place on his as his heart continued to drum against his ribcage. He took out his old watch and looked at the cracked glass, trying to read what time it was. The fact that the clock had survived till now was a miracle itself. The watch somewhat reminded him of himself, both cracked, at the point of being broken while still barely holding on as it kept on ticking. He sighed as the numbers blinked back at him, informing him that it was a little bit after 1 a.m. He still had 3 hours to go back to Yashitoru-san's, prepare breakfast, do the dishes, clean up the house a bit, get his stuff, and get ready for the hellhole that he called his school. He looked down at his hand and softly turned the key around, locking the door of the small hideout. He let out a small smile when the only sound that came out of the door ended up being a small click, informing that he had successfully locked the door. Izuku walked to the bookshelf that he had made out of cardboards, and trailed his fingers over all the notebooks, letting out a deep sigh as he stopped on the 124th one, the last one since he still hadn't had a chance to get any more notebooks. He had his money, which had been left over by his parents, but he didn't have any access to it till he actually reached the age of 3 more years, only 3 more years till he was finally free from all of this. He laid on one of the bean bags on the floor and stared up at the ceiling, sighing. Izuku couldn't even imagine himself in 3 or 4 years, if he was being honest. Living in a decent house, never having to go on an empty stomach, his house filled with his mother and his father's stuff, working as a pro hero. Maybe he could adopt someone too, show them things that no one had bothered to show him all these years. No one would have a leash on him, no one would actually be able to blackmail him in any kind of way. He would be truly free, and maybe making his parents proud, who had done everything that they could just so that he would be happy. Maybe he could search into his mother's side too, get in contact with his other family members. The greenette turned around, laying on his stomach as he opened his notebook and went to a new page, rewriting everything that he had written on the villain that he had come in contact with that day. Both the one that MT Lady had gone against and the sludge villain. He needed to work hard, much harder than the others if he wished to reach his dreams. He needed to ace both of the tests. Sorry Katsuki, he thought in his mind, letting a challenging smile settle on his lips as he thought of how competitive the other could be, of how he had been in first place ever since they had both changed schools through certain reasons, but I'm gonna come in first place this time. Okay, so, left leg in the front, right leg a little bit bent, right arm guarding the, he groaned, stopping his murmuring before picking up his 20th coded hero analysis notebook for the millionth time in the last 3 days. He skimmed through it, trying to find the problem, murmuring out loud as there was no one else that could hear him in the trashed beach. So okay, what went wrong? Was my foot too low? Or was it bent too much? No, that's not it. Was it the arms? No, the arms were in perfect position, so his eyes grew big as he realized his problem. That's it. Gunhead is way taller and muscular than me, so it would only make sense that his stance is wider too. I'm so dumb. He slammed his head with his notebook before getting into position once again. Izuku got into his position and sighed before going for it. He kicked the dummy successfully and grinned, letting his body fall to the ground that was filled with sand. He stared up into the orange sky that came with the setting sun and sighed with fondness. It was times like these that made him happy that he was still here, to feel the ache that came from achieving something, the satisfaction that came with the soft breeze and the fuzzy light feeling in his chest that made him smile at the setting sun. The peaceful moment came to an end, however, as a tire rolled down from the top of the trash pile, causing Izuku to jump up to avoid being run over by it. He looked around himself and felt all his positive feelings leave as a feeling of yearning took over it. He wanted to feel the sun on his face as he lied down with his dad and mom once again. He wanted to watch his dad try to eat ice cream without it melting every time. He wanted for his mother to smudge her nose while eating hers, without realizing till it was too late. He wanted to lie down next to them and guess what the clouds looked like with them. He sighed and shook his head, placing his hands on the sand and feeling the small chunks of metal pass through them. The messy green-haired boy looked up at the sky once again before closing his eyes. He promised himself that if he got into Yude he would start transforming this place, that he would restore it to what it was because, after all, he owed it to his dad to take care of their special place. Yashitoru-sen, he asked, trying so hard to hide his quivering voice. Yes, Midoriya, did you need me for something? He took a deep breath and raised his head. He in a breath as he heard the man growl, I don't have time for this, don't waste my time. The man turned around starting to go back into his office, which made Izuku clench his eyes shut. I want to study at Udash, he blurted out, and Izuku felt himself panic as he saw the man come to a stop. With scholarship? I wouldn't be planning it another way. I am planning on getting a scholarship, he quickly added and awaited for his guardian's reaction. Izuku flinched when the man started to laugh at the top of his lungs. Oh joy, I didn't think that you were this dumb, Midoriya. And how do you plan on getting first place in a country full of kids who have powerful quirks? Do you plan to bore them with your fan side till they pass out? Yashitoru-san, please, just let me. I promise that I have been training and dash. He was cut off, however, by the man waving his hand around. Sure, go ahead, you are free to try. If you get first place, I'll even let you go. Izuku felt his eyes tear up and smiled. Really? He sighed out and saw the man's lips stretch into a smile, if it could even be called a smile from how cruel it was. Yeah, and if you somehow end up dying, I will probably be able to get off from work and get money from the state to take care of your funeral problems, and if you somehow get injured, I can just send you back to the orphanage. Izuku flinched at the idea before sighing. And I will still be making breakfast for you every day also if I do, and dash. Highly doubt it, also as I said, right now you are wasting my time. The man made a shooing motion and Izuku nodded, leaving the still laughing man with a warm, happy feeling. This might have been a small step, but it was a step nonetheless. The first step to his future, the first step to reaching his dreams, bending them into a reality. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM. NKM. SKVK. The police, NT. ST. 1 Ya. Ma. Ta. TI. OU. MO. DK. EK. KK. RS. MS. KJ. HS. FT. ST. Teach. KB. MM. My. HS. Ya. 1B. NM. ST. TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHD, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, R2PB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres. TCS? IFO, HTT, TTD, KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that hate Izuku or have yet to meet him, or in some situations those who don't care about him. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him way too much for their liking. The dark ones, XX, are his friends or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. He got on the train just on time, sighing in relief as the doors closed. He had made it right on time. The train took as long as it usually did, but somehow it felt longer than it usually did, as it felt like hours had passed rather than minutes. As soon as he got out, he started running once again, being glad that he had not run into anyone from school, since he was sure that at least 5 of them had been planning on taking the exam. He slowed down as soon as he could see the school and walked towards the school. Soon he reached the school's gates and felt a small smile cover his features under his scarf. He took a deep breath, because this was the first step to a better future, where he would help others, save others, and make sure that there were fewer orphans like himself. He started to walk, and he was falling. So much for a better future, so much for high hopes, he just wanted to die. He clenched his eyes shut, waiting for pain, which never came. He frowned and opened his eyes, looking to his back, and grinned sheepishly at his hero. Hi. Nice to see you here, he said while his hero let out a small shty nerd. Katsuki mumbled and Izuku smiled as the boy picked him up like a bag of grapes and dropped him to the floor. Izuku staggered for a second before smiling at Katsuki, who just grumbled once again. Can't you just go one day without drawing trouble to yourself? Of course not, I am just too irresistible. Katsuki growled once again, causing Izuku to smirk. Well, he stopped however as soon as the comments of the others hit his ear, making him frown. Isn't that the cursed boy? How the hell did he found the guts to even come here? How could he dare to come here? Was it just to ruin our moods? Well, Izuku tried to ignore them and turned back towards Katsuki. Well, thanks for helping me, but it might be best if we act like we don't know each other from now on, he said and turned around, ignoring all the angry curses that Katsuki spewed around. He was sure that this was for the best. Katsuki had gone through so much, he didn't deserve to be with Izuku, who would just end up ruining his reputation. He went into the exam center before the frozen and furious blonde but stopped when he saw where his seat was, or who he was going to be sitting next to. He should have known, he should have known, he should have known. His eyes met the eye of the boy and felt himself freeze at the cruel smile that covered the boy's face. Hey, Izuku. I had heard that you were going to be here, so me and my buddies decided that we should also try it out. Izuku's eyes grew big in here, before backing away. He felt himself bump something and turned around, his gaze meeting the one of a tall navy-haired boy. He heard the boy huff and push him to the side before moving past him. He gulped, realizing that he was pulling attention towards himself, and forced his legs to work, going towards his seat, which was between 3 of his classmates, to his luck. He counted himself lucky that they were separated during the original written exam so that he could do the questions without any distractions. But there was a problem. He had thought that UA was supposed to have a hard entrance test, but this was way too easy, enough so that he finished the test almost 1 hour earlier than the other students, which caused him to remake his questions for 3 more times. When they finished, the students were again directed to their old places once again. This meant that Izuku was, once again, sandwiched between the Dryo and Katsuki. It was not as bad as it should have been, thanks to Katsuki being there, but it was still bad enough that the navy-haired boy that he had bumped into earlier got annoyed with his whimperings and called out to him during the explanation. Izuku was sure that he did not want to end up in his class. He didn't want to end up in Katsuki's classroom either, knowing well that he wouldn't be able to ignore him if that happened. He got out of his trance when the thorn-handed boy pulled away his paper, only to scowl. King hell, I was hoping to see you die. Why did they put us all into different sections? He grumbled and Izuku sighed, hoping that this meant that he could focus on his test, rather than worrying if they ended up dead rather than him. His gaze drifted to where Katsuki was sitting and felt a shudder went through him along with excitement at the way that the blonde boy was smirking. He knew that smirk, and he found himself feeling sorry for his tormentors, who would not be able to get out from this that easily. He looked at his other side just in time to see a girl searching for something and found himself frowning. Whatever it was that she was searching for seemed important if she was worrying over it that much. He sighed once again and got up when something caught his eye in the corner. That is all from me. The hero Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "A true hero is someone who overcomes life's obstacles. Go beyond. Plus ultra." Now, everyone, I hope you guys have a fun time suffering. He heard Present Mike finish and bolted out of his seat to go and get to the good luck charm just before everyone else started to rush out of their seats and to their examination sites. He raised his head and found himself frowning when he saw that the brown-haired girl was no longer there. He got up and went with the flow of the crowd while pushing all his anxiety aside. He hoped that he would see the girl soon but guessed that he would have to give it to the teacher's room if he ended up in different places than her. To his luck, he ended up in the same place as the brunette. Once again, to his luck, he somehow ended up in the same group as the navy-haired, engined kid from before who seemed to have a hobby of staring at him. He ignored the low murmurings of the others and looked back at the girl, planning on giving the good luck charm to her if it really did belong to her. He sighed and took a couple of steps towards her. His destination was blocked, however, as he bumped into the engined boy once again. Much to his delight, Izuku backed up and sighed at the glare that the boy was supporting. Only he would manage to make enemies even before school started. Can't you see that she is trying to focus? I heard others talking about how much of a brute you are, but to lessen the chances of someone passing the exam by distracting them. How could you even think about destroying someone's focus like that? Izuku sighed. He seriously had no time to even think about things like this. Should he have just left the charm on the floor? His eyes trailed to the brunette, their eyes meeting, and sighed. Her eyes were frantic. They looked guilty, probably for having lost their luck charm, and he knew that she had no chance of passing the exam this way. He sent a soft smile towards her way and saw her flinch, which reminded him of what the engine kid had called him. This was not how a brute acted. He pulled out the charm and saw the girl's eyes light up with hope at the sight of it. He had wanted to do this in secret, as it would only pull more attention to himself and the girl, but he knew that his chance was gone. He walked past the tall boy and went to her, silently giving it to her along with a small smile. I saw that you had been searching for something and thought that this was yours when I saw it on the floor, he said, quietly so only they could hear it. I had been so worried. Yeah, your eyes did look frantic. I guess it is from a precious person, he said, hoping to make her relax. Her scrunched up shoulders relaxed and he grinned from the inside, knowing that in the end he had done the right thing. Yeah, my mother, she smiled back at him, and he felt a pang of pain at the thought of his mother before warmth spread through him. How nice, take better care of it next time. He turned around, hearing the girl mutter something similar to "I will" while he got ready for his exam. Izuku sighed as he landed on the ground, stepping his feet through another robot's head. He ignored the cut on his leg and rushed towards another robot that had been cornering a blonde boy. He had 65 points already, if he went like this. You all right? He asked, and pulled the blonde up, somewhat losing focus from how sparkly the other's uniform was. Merci, I tripped and dash. Izuku felt another robot nearing them and watched as the boy shot a laser at it. He frowned at the amount of power that was used and looked at the blonde's face. You might want to lower the amount of laser you shoot out. I am guessing that you have 22 points. Yeah, you should try to go ahead and hit the ones that have 3 points with less strength, or you might become sick. He saw the boy frown and bit his lips. I am just good at analyzing, nothing else. He turned around and rushed to another robot, leaving the French boy behind. His goal was not to pass the exam, it was to come in first place. Izuku simply couldn't settle for less than that. He sighed and bolted after the screams of the other students. He wondered how the school even paid for all this stuff. All the special effects, all the tech, the buildings, and the layout. He kicked out another robot's leg from under and watched as it fell, the fall causing it to break apart. He ignored the person that he had saved, not wanting to waste time with those who had called him all those names, and kept running. He had 70 points now from all those attacks. It was high, but as Katsuki as his opponent there was no way of being sure. They were similar in that apartment, he guessed, both of them incapable of settling for anything less than the first place. A screech sounded throughout the arena and he looked at where the sound had come from. Not important, Present Mike had said. Not that important, he had said. Easy to ignore, he had said. Izuku called it bullshit. There was nothing about the robot that was small or ignorable. He grumbled and turned around, looking to see other dummies to destroy, but stopped when he heard someone grunting. His eyes went fuzzy at the sight of the brunette lying under the piece of construction. Izuku baby, you will do great stuff one day. For a moment, everything disappeared, and everything was burning, with his mother and Auntie Mitsuki stuck under tons of rubble, unable to move. Go, Izuku, you gotta save yourself. For a moment, it felt as everything froze. Everything simply stopped, and his mother's voice rang in his head. Izuku! He wasn't sure what happened next. He didn't think, as his body moved on its own, and Izuku rushed towards the fallen brunette with everything he had in him. The greenette put his hands underneath the fallen cement. He ignored the pain, ignored the way that it tore his skin open, ignored it even as it destroyed his hand. He could not care about anything else but the brunette that needed to go to her parents after this, the brunette that had to go home and hug her parents, tell them that she was going to be a hero. Even though he didn't even know her name, she had someone that was waiting for her, and that was all that mattered. He raised it, letting out a groan, and reached for the girl with newfound strength, pulling her out from underneath it before picking her up in his back. "I am so sorry," the girl cried, and Izuku hummed before starting to run. He ran as fast as he could, dropping the girl down to where the other students had been watching him with big eyes, and turned back towards the robot. The girl had been crying because she had been scared of death. The others had run away because they had been scared of death. Izuku started to run towards the robot, not caring about the names that had been shouting after him. He hadn't been afraid of death for the last 10 years of his life, and as he ran up a fallen structure before jumping on top of the robot, he knew that this was nothing when he thought about his everyday life. Toshinori. Yagi Toshinori had been anxious ever since the beginning of the day. He had told the two of them, Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo, that they could become heroes, had told the quirkless timid kid that he could be a hero, but now thinking about it, he regretted it. He sighed as he entered the room where they would be watching the practical test, and found himself perking up at the way the greenette darted in as soon as the exam began. He was short and skinny, which meant that it was not that easy to keep track of him, but his eyes never left the greenette. He watched as he took down a total of 37 robots when the others took down only 10 or 15 to earn a place in the hero class. He grinned and found that his worry had been for nothing. "Now, let's see how our potential students act in a scene of chaos," the meek voice of the principal stated, and he found himself focusing on the screen once again, feeling his eyes go big at the giant robot that rose up from underneath the ground. He prayed for the boy to get away from the chaos, because he was quirkless. He found himself silently thanking Kami when the boy turned around, getting ready to leave. However, his relief didn't last for long. "Netsu, there is a girl stuck underneath the bricks," someone pointed out, and Toshinori cursed under his breath, moving closer to the screen. "Netsu, stop the robot," someone screamed, other voices joining the owner of the voice while looking at the panicking and crying girl. However, Toshinori had his eyes on someone else. He watched as the green-haired boy stopped in his tracks, frozen for less than a second, before he was running towards where the trapped girl was. It struck something inside of him, the way that he kept on going, not caring about his injuries, not caring about his weaknesses, and not caring about the danger. The way that he only cared about saving the girl made Toshinori's insides warm as he sighed. The kid was amazing however he looked at it. He was brave, heroic, weak but strong and just right. He watched as the judges raised their points, and Izuku got 30 points extra for saving the brunette girl. He was at 103 now as he ran with the girl in his arms. "Okay, I guess that the test dash," one of the judges began to say, but stopped when they all saw the greenette run back in, jumping from rubble to rubble before jumping to the robot. Toshinori found himself grinning at the quirkless kid as he went to the back of the robot before tearing the cables off, disabling it in minutes. No sound was made as the boy got down, staggering on his feet before running back to the girl to check up on her. "How many points did he end up getting?" he heard Ms. Midnight ask. 123. Netsu sighed out and Toshinori frowned. He would have expected for the principal to be excited about the kid and how smart he was, but the grim look on Netsu's face told him that none of that mattered at that moment. He turned back at the screen, just in time to see Recovery Girl kissing the injuries of the kids, healing them in seconds, except Izuku, who had already left. He sighed and turned back to Netsu to see what the mutant was thinking. To his surprise, the rat raccoon-like principal had a frown that supported his face. He ignored it, however, in favor of looking at Izuku's frozen face that lingered on one of the screens. "Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo," he murmured and found himself smiling. "The future symbol of hope for everyone," he added before leaving the room, hoping to catch him before he left. Netsu had told him that most students ended up getting 30 points to secure their place in the hero course, and none of them had come close to the duo who had asked him if they could be heroes days ago. Izuku Midoriya with 123 points, first place. Katsuki Bakugo with 97 points, second place. The others hardly got half their points, besides an impressive boy with a hardening quirk who held the third place with a total of 68 points. He stopped as he saw the greenette leaving the school entrance. The first place, Izuku Midoriya. The boy who would soon become the symbol of hope across the world. The boy that reminded him so much of Nana that an ache settled in his heart. "Izuku Midoriya," he said, his buff form leaving him in the empty school entrance. He watched as the boy froze for a second, before sending him a smile that was enough to make all his worries leave. "I will be waiting," he yelled, trying hard so that he didn't end up coughing. The boy grinned and Toshinori straightened up. "Yes, sir." Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH, HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The police, NT, ST. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, RTPB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. IFO, HTT, TTD, KC. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that hate Izuku or have yet to meet him, or in some situations those who don't care about him. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him way too much for their liking. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Nedzu went to his desk as soon as he entered his office, opening his computer. Midoriya, he typed into the search, letting out a deep breath as he skimmed through the files. Nedzu had to make sure that it wasn't that boy, the boy who had too many rumors attached to his name, the boy who had put so many people in the hospital. But it was the boy who had seemed so bright, who had made him so excited during the whole thing, was in fact the rumored monster boy. Izuku Midoriya. Nedzu looked at the nonsense in front of him, letting out an exhausted sigh as he tried to make out the whole picture. All of his paper-written exams were above 95%, while his orals were all. None of this made any sense. It was too sketchy how all of his orals were 0% while his written exams were at the top of his class. And above all of it, he had caused many problems throughout the school year, pulling someone with him down the stairs, breaking a kid's hand, breaking someone's tooth. And all of that was only these last 2 years. Why would a troublemaker, such as Izuku Midoriya, even try to come to his school? Why, after all those bad things, all those things written about him on his record? It simply didn't make sense. None of this made sense, and he didn't know just which one was the truth and which one was a lie. Were all of these lies? They couldn't all be the truth. That made no sense. He heard a knock on his door and closed his computer, putting on a smile for his workers. He raised his head, watching as Ectoplasm, 13, Snipe, Midnight, Cementos, Present Mike, and All Might along with Eraserhead entered the room. He smiled and looked at every single one of them before mentioning for them to sit on the couches in the room. They did one by one, with Ectoplasm, Snipe and Midnight on one couch and Cementos, Present Mike and Eraserhead on the other one. 13 ended up standing behind the first couch, while All Might stood behind the second one. "What do you all think of our number 1 contestant today?" he asked, taking a sip from his cup as he watched the heroes. "He was pretty good," Midnight said, "and he didn't even use his quirk through the whole thing. I must say, he might end up becoming a force to be reckoned with in a couple of years with how good he is." Cementos said, and he hummed. "I want any of you to expel him the first chance that you have. You don't need to create any reasons to expel him, but I will expel him in the practical exams before break if he is still here by then." "But sir, why would Dash?" He raised his paw, cutting Mike off. "You guys most likely don't know yet, but he has a bad record." He took another sip from his tea and watched the gears turn in the head of the others. The young lad seems to have a high potential. Wouldn't it be unfair if we were to judge him by his past? All Might said, and Netsu hummed before opening his computer once again. He has broken a student's wrist when the boy said that he would like to be his friend. He has put a dent on the wall using one of his classmates. He has drenched his classroom many times. He has pushed someone down the stairs in the past. He has kicked a student who ended up bedridden because of a broken jaw. Aside from that, many of his teachers have complained about him causing problems during the lessons, not letting others concentrate, and disrupting everyone in the class. He looked up from his computer, watching as all of them frowned. But sir, I have talked with young Midoriya and he seems really genuine and dash. He sighed as All Might tried to defend the boy once again. He hadn't been sure at first, but with how the number one hero was defending Izuku, Netsu felt himself getting even more anxious. What if the boy had gotten this close to All Might just to trick him? Netsu had worked so hard to make this place a home for everyone. He wouldn't let anyone threaten his students, his staff. All Might, the boy is really smart. I bet that he can just lie through his teeth, tricking anyone, he added and watched as the man opened his mouth, before closing it once again, having nothing to say to that. He sighed and looked at his empty teacup before looking back at the teachers, who hoped to give all that they could give to their students. That is the only things that he has done in the last 6 months, aside from that he has gone to a total of 17 different foster homes, in one of them even breaking the ribs of one of his foster father at the mere age of he has however gone to only 6 different schools. He waited for a bit before turning at Eraserhead, one of his most trusted teachers, because of how fair he always acted, how logical he always acted. The man knew that he had to put his heart aside in his work and did just that. Aizawa, I will be putting him in your class. Feel free to treat him as you would like, expel him if you want on the first day. Keep him till the practical exams if you want, but you and I both know what you will choose, he watched as the man sighed. Netsu knew that Aizawa would choose the right thing. He trusted him to see the truth better than he ever could. I hate to do this, he is quirkless, he doesn't have anyone to guard his back and he will most likely have financial problems. I approve of any one of you stopping his sponsorship in any way. He sighed and turned back to his computer. You are all dismissed. There was shuffling heard and he sighed, closing the documents regarding the boy. However, his head shot up when he felt someone looming over him. I would like to ask you for permission to contact a friend of mine to investigate this further. He frowned and looked up at All Might. He had already had a feeling that he wouldn't be able to convince the man that easily. Well, he guessed that it would be better this way. The man would see the kind of monster that he was trying to save, and if he wasn't. Netsu didn't know what he would do if he wasn't. I give you permission, you were someone who always needed evidence after all. He looked up at the man and frowned as the man sighed with relief. Just what had the boy done to trick the symbol of peace this much? He had no way of knowing. But he knew one thing. He had tried his best to install safety measurements in the whole school, from special gates to rules that everyone needed to follow in his school. He would not be letting all his work go to waste. No danger would be allowed to roam the halls because he had come in first place. He would not let anyone threaten the peace inside the walls of Yui. In the place where he had come to call home, he wouldn't let a villain roam in the halls of Yue. Izuku. Midoriya, there is a mail for you from you, Iyashitor-san called out and Izuku gasped, placing the last plate to the cupboard before running towards the man. Did you finish the chores? The man asked and Izuku fastly nodded, watching as the man waved the envelope in his hand while humming. Any other chores? No sir, I finished all of them. The man hummed once again before tossing the envelope towards him. Suit yourself then, you won't be allowed to go if you don't have any scholarships. I'm gonna go for a drink. Izuku watched for a bit, waiting till the man locked the door before running up to his small bedroom. He hurriedly ripped the small fat envelope and took out the device, feeling himself grin at the sight of All Might. Young Midoriya. I am here. Izuku snickered as the man said that. It felt weird, seeing the man in his buff form after all those times that he had seen him. Even if it was not even more than 5 times. He frowned and got closer to the hologram of the man as the man's lips twitched for a moment. He knew that there was something wrong, but wasn't sure just what was wrong. To welcome you to the UA Hero course. The man continued and Izuku felt tears start to gather in his eyes, as the man kept on going. giving him information about his class, his scores, and where he would be getting his things from. On top of that, you have ranked first in both of the exams, meaning that you have won the only scholarship in the whole school. The man exclaimed, and Izuku laughed, covering his mouth as tears started to stream down his face. Come, Midoriya. To your hero academia. The man finished and the hologram stopped. Izuku lowered his head and his hand went to grip his heart as he started to sob. Mom, Dad. He looked up at the ceiling as a bright smile covered his features. I did it. I'm going to become a hero, Dad. I am going to follow the road of your dreams. I am going to make your dreams my reality. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM. NKM. SKVK. The police, NT. ST. 1 Ya. Ma. Ta. TI. OU. MO. DK. EK. KK. RS. MS. KJ. HS. FT. ST. Teach. KB. MM. My. HS. Ya. 1B. NM. ST. TT. Ye. SK. YK. KT. JH. Other students, MT. NHT. MH. Pro Heroes, STGT. YTML. RUM. KH. EFMJ. KSO. TTFG. Training Camp ARC. R2PB. TSR. YCT. SSM. KI. 8 Bullets ARC. SSN. KBG. Villains, Yigres. TCS. FO. HTT. TTD. KC. The crossed-out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him, or in some situations those who don't care about him. The italic crossed-out ones, XX, are those that don't really like or hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him way too much. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. And then I climbed on it. Izuku exclaimed, his two hands going crazy as he explained everything to the scarred male. Tuya let out a disappointed sigh and slapped the back of his head, causing him to turn towards the taller male, both of them still walking towards their destination to celebrate Izuku getting into UA with a scholarship. How the FCK are you even still alive? The burnt kid asked lazily, which made Izuku laugh. Then I pulled all of its cables before jumping down. I seriously won't be surprised if one day I saw that you had died in a very dumb way. Yeah. You would miss me though, won't cha, Yutsunda? The green net was cut off, however, as a rock hit his shoulder, making him let out a soft hiss. Damn it, I almost hit his head. Both of the two turned towards the owner of the voice, seeing 6 of Izuku's ex-classmates. Tuya felt his flame light up, only to stop when Izuku's took a hold of his wrist. He scoffed at how brave Izuku was trying to act, even though his hand was shaking. He let the greenette drag him by the arm, taking note of how he tried to stand between him and the others, scared that they would do something to him, or maybe scared of what Tuya might do to them if they took it too far. His hand slipped from his arm, however, when one of the dumb motherfuckers decided to act even more idiotic and punched the boy. Thus, I got the freak in the face this time. Tuya quickly bent down next to the kneeling boy, taking a look at his nose, and the blood trailing down his face. He would kill that bastard, make it so that no one ever found their bodies ever again. He would do it slow. He wasn't able to move, however, as Izuku fisted his jacket, holding onto it for dear life. The greenette was smiling, as blood started to drop down his chin and onto the ground. Oh, we made his boyfriend mad. What you gonna do, Dash? He took a hold of his hoodie, fully planning on killing them, but stopped when the boy who was too bright for this world took a hold of his hand and lowered it. They can't know, right? He scoffed. How about we all have some Dash? Nagato. You won't be happy if you finish that sentence. He wasn't sure, but the way that Izuku growled made him proud somehow. 2. Please go home. His eyes shot up towards him, feeling fear crawl up inside of him along with other negative things that he pushed down, ignored. He heard the other boy snicker as Izuku got up, wiping off the blood that dripped down his nose. Tuya bent down a bit, as Izuku pulled at his jacket. I'll be alright, they can't do that much anyway since I got into UA and they know that. But I am scared that you will do something that you might just regret in the future. You said that no one could know about you, did you not? I can't just dash, he began but went quiet when Izuku let go of him. Just don't turn back, alright? It'll be okay. You idiot. He hissed, as an empty feeling settled inside of him as soon as the greenette let go of his coat. But he still listened, walking away from the fight even if he heard grunts of pain from the boy. Tuya had already killed too many Beastards in the past, and knew that killing 3 more wouldn't change a thing, but he wouldn't do it, because he knew that that would pull the attention of others onto Izuku, and the boy had so many things that he still had to achieve. This was not alright. This was far from alright, the way that Izuku was always ignored, the way that he was used as punching bag, the way that society had decided that they were worthless. Tuya hated all of them, every hero that was supposed to come and save them, every hero that had been supposed to protect them, the adults that were supposed to be there for them. At first, he had thought that it had only been Endeavor who was a bad person painted as good, but his eyes had opened as he had known Izuku for a longer time. Izuku was going to be a true hero someday, but every fake hero deserved to die, disappear, and the first hero that was going to die by his hands was going to be Endeavor himself. Izuku. Izuku sighed as he set the table and covered it, getting it ready for Yashitoru-san to eat when he woke up 6 hours later, before placing the katsudon that he had made into the refrigerator for Yashitoru-san's dinner and lunch. The greenette got ready, putting on a black bodysuit to hide his scars and the Yui uniform. He in a breath, and as soon as his backpack touched his lower back, where one of the boys had burned him, he checked if his makeup covered all of his scars on his face, before exiting the house and running towards the train station. It was going to be hard, juggling school and his personal life at the same time. Getting up at 3 a.m. to clean the house and to cook for Yashitoru-san, leaving the house at AM so that he didn't miss his train, and going to the library for 2 hours after school every single day. He wouldn't be able to eat anything except while he cooked for Yashitoru-san, and it would be near 8:30 p.m. when he got back. That would mean that he would only be able to train during the night. Maybe he could go to the beach to clean, as he had promised before going back home at 11 p.m. It was okay. He was used to sleeping only 3 or 2 hours a day. He got settled into the mostly empty train and sighed, taking his notebook out to go through his class notes of what he thought that they would be learning that day for some time before switching to his hero analysis notebooks. There were 2 little things that he enjoyed doing in his life, 2 little things that he could actually enjoy with his situation, and one of them was probably sitting in the empty train and watching the sunrise. It was nice, he guessed, that he would be able to witness it every day for the next 3 years. He scanned the last page of his notes, going over them a final time, before switching to his hero analysis notebook. Izuku felt somewhat glad that Katsuki had moved away a month ago to live closer to the school. Now, there was almost a 2-hour difference between the two of them, meaning that the two of them wouldn't see each other that much any longer. Izuku cared for the blonde, so he hoped that the distance stopped the two of them getting closer, stopped Katsuki from being pulled down the rabbit hole that he had fallen into. The greenette couldn't bear to see the angry Pomeranian hurt again, not after that night, not after everything that had happened. He would rather hurt than let Katsuki risk everything for him. Izuku sighed and closed his eyes, leaning his head against the window as he thought about 3 others that he hoped to not see again this year. The first that came to mind after his childhood friend bully brother was the brunette with the zero-gravity quirk, along with the laser boy. The two of them had been kind, naive even, and Izuku knew how much it would damage them to be caught up with him. And Izuku didn't want that. He didn't think that he would really mind being in the same class with the engine boy that reminded him of Tensei Ida, since the other hadn't really liked him in the first place. But still the idea of being with someone that he was even a little bit familiar with gave him goosebumps. Izuku sighed deeply and opened his eyes, looking at the clouds. A smile settled on his face as the sun peeked out from where it had hidden, cutting through the pitch-black night like a blade. He wondered as he looked down at his notebook, just when his sun would finally rise. Shoyuta. He sighed as he sat down on the table, joining his husband and son. Oto-san, he looked up at Hitoshi, before turning to Zashi with another sigh. You two have been stressed lately, has something happened? The black-haired man felt a headache coming, as he leaned back and raised one hand to rub his forehead. Class 1A is going to be beginning as a 21-student class today. Shoyuta began and watched as the other two frowned. A boy that's currently in 1, Izuku Midoriya. He will most likely be expelled before the exams start this year per Nedzu's request. That is why he put an extra student in 1A. Hitoshi lowered his chopsticks with a frown. But why would you guys target him? The boy asked, and he found himself turning towards his husband for help. Toshi, the thing is Midoriya has a bad record. According to Nedzu, it will be best if he is expelled as soon as possible, maybe even on the first day of school. Shoyuta picked up his chopsticks, before putting it back down having lost his appetite. I plan to do a physical exam and will be telling the class that the person that comes last will be expelled. Of course, Izuku will be coming last since most of them are made for those with strong quirks in one category. He sighed and ran his hand through his hair. So, this boy, Midoriya, has a mental quirk like I do? Shoyuta was already regretting this. Both him and Hitoshi had had a disadvantage all their lives because of their quirks, which had been seen as villainous from the very beginning, so to use something that a person had been born with against them. Izuku Midoriya is quirkless, Hisashi answered for him, and he held back another tired sigh as his son shot up from his placem, causing his chair to fall as he slammed his hand on the table. How could you agree to that? You know how hard quirk discrimination can be. You know how much someone can suffer from it, so dash. Hitoshi. Shoyuta cut him off, making his son glare at him. I also don't like it and know how unfair it is, know how hard it can be, trust me, I do, but I trust Nedzu's judgment, know that Nedzu is smart, much smarter than anyone else, and I have simply never seen him be wrong. I simply ask that you bear with me this single time, can you simply stay away from the problem child? He watched with a heavy heart, as his son picked up his chair and sat back down, mumbling a soft, sorry, as he did. I can't promise you anything, but we'll stay away from him for today only if you tell me what he has actually done. Shoyuta let out his Cheshire grin, feeling somewhat proud and irritated at the same time with the younger boy as he watched him. Proud because of how the kid knew not to listen to others blindly, somewhat irritated because of how he was questioning him. But he blamed the second part on the protective side of his that he had gained after raising his nephew as his kid for the last 7 years. The black-haired man believed that Izuku Midoriya was walking along the edge of a cliff by coming to Yui, where heroes like himself taught kids with a record as bad as his, and had a feeling that he would fall off the edge very soon. What he didn't know, what he could have never guessed, was that Izuku had always walked the edge of a cliff, one that went higher and higher, and could have never known that the cliff was so high now, that if Izuku did slip, he wouldn't survive the fall. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, an CSR Teachers, 2 a.m., SAH, HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The Police, NT, ST. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, RTPB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. IFO, HTT, TTD, KC. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that hate Izuku or have yet to meet him, or in some situations those who don't care about him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't really like or hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. Izuku smiled as he took in the massive doors of his class. It was amazing how the school considered those with every type of quirky and how everyone was welcome to join the school, even a quirkless orphan that had a record like his. He made a small silent prayer, praying to God that he graduated this year, that he didn't get bullied by any of his classmates and didn't have any problems that would cut his way to becoming a hero before softly opening the door. "Don't put your feet on the desk," someone shouted as soon as the doors opened, and Izuku cursed his luck after seeing who the navy-haired kid was yelling at. "Which elite junior high did you go to, huh? You extra." He ignored the shouts of the explosive blonde, already being used to his screams, and his eyes trailed around the room groaning from the inside at the zero-gravity girl and the laser boy that were cheerfully talking to someone else. He should have probably prayed to be in a different classroom than the three of them. He sighed as for a moment his eyes met with the brunette, and bit his lips when he saw her brighten at the sight of him. He seriously did not need to ruin someone's reputation right off the bat. "Izuku!" Katsuki screamed and Izuku took a deep breath before going towards where his desk was supposed to be but frowning. 20 desks, 21 students in the classroom. 20 lockers. It was a person too much, one person. "Go somewhere else, if you want to play at being friends." His thoughts got cut off by the newcomer, and he turned around, looking at the underground pro-hero. Izuku felt his heart beat faster as he looked at Eraserhead, one of his childhood heroes, one of his idols, and felt excitement course through his veins. For years he had idolized the man, had hoped to become like him, had studied his motives and his fighting style. He looked at the man with hidden admiration but felt himself freeze when the pro-hero looked at him, sending him a glare that had chills going up his body. He guessed that he should have known that it wouldn't matter wherever he went as long as he was Izuku Midoriya. "I'm your homeroom teacher, Shoyuda Aizawa. Nice to meet you," the man said, and Izuku looked away, feeling goosebumps all over his body as the man continued to stare at him. "That's our homeroom teacher," almost everyone in the rest of the class yelled, making Izuku's ears ring. He wished that he hadn't gone outside the other day. It could have maybe helped him avoid the whole thing with his ex-classmates. "It's kind of sudden, but put this on and go out to the field," the pro-hero said, as his gaze roamed over every single one of them. Silence took over them as they stare at their homeroom teacher, who was watching them with bored eyes. "Well?" the erasure hero asked, breaking the silence, and they all quickly got up to get their outfits, leaving the class to quickly get to the lockers. Izuku walked from the back and slipped into the toilet as soon as they got to the changing rooms, to put on their sports outfits. He took out his uniform, revealing a tight black t-shirt that hugged his upper body along with arm sleeves that covered everything that the t-shirt couldn't cover up. He also had black tight shorts on, which covered to his knees, leaving the space between his feet and knees bare, the scars visible to roaming eyes. The greenette quickly put on his clothes before leaving for the gym, making sure to be there earlier than most but not all. To his surprise, the teacher was already there, waiting for them with a bored look. The man unbound his arms and looked at them as soon as everyone was there. "We will be having a quirk assessment test," the man calmly stated, and Izuku held back a flinch as the others screamed once again. "A quirk assessment test?" He got away from the group a bit, staying in the back as the man's anger seemed to rise. "But what about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? If you are going to become a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events. UA's selling point is how unrestricted its school traditions are." The man turned towards them, making some of the students irk once again, that's how the teachers run their classes. "You kids have been doing these since junior high, too, right? Physical tests where you weren't allowed to use your quirks." Izuku couldn't remember a time that he had done these tests, all his sports lessons mostly being spent in a dark storage room or the showers, always being locked away. He wasn't sure that he had even attended any sort of normal PE classes. Midoriya, you finished at the top of the practical exam, right? Aizawa-sensei asked, and Izuku's head shot up, looking at the man with big eyes. He clenched his hands as he felt all 20 of his classmates look towards him, and nodded. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? The man asked, and Izuku clenched his hands tighter before opening his mouth to answer the man. I don't have any results. That'll be the first time for me to do it. He looked at his sensei, who looked more like every other adult, rather than a pro hero who Izuku had been thriving to be like. You don't? No, sir. Okay, well, I guess we can't do anything about that. Now try to throw it with your quirk. The man said, and Izuku felt his nails dig deeper into his hands. His sensei should have known that he was quirkless. He should have known that Izuku hadn't done any practical test before. So just why? I don't have a physical quirk, sir, he answered after taking a deep breath through his nose. It is impressive, I might say, coming in first place without a quirk. Izuku settled on a simple, thank you, knowing that the man didn't mean it at all. Then, Bakugu, I believe you were in second place. What was your highest score during junior high? Izuku felt much better when the man's gaze was lifted off of him, and felt himself start to doze off a bit as he tried to calm his heart. Ignoring the small crack that formed right in the middle of it, as he looked down on the floor, trying to calm his breathing so as not to have a panic attack in the middle of class. Izuku had expected it, if he was being honest, for his high school life to be just as bad as it had been during junior high, but one of his idols letting him down this hard? 20 desks, 21 students in the classroom, 20 lockers. One person was supposed to get expelled today. Izuku was the one that was supposed to be expelled. Somehow, the knowledge of that made his heart ache like it hadn't ever since he had lost his mother. Die! Someone screamed, and it took him a moment too long to realize who the voice had belonged to. His head shot up as he saw Katsuki throw the ball right past Eraserhead's head. The ball just narrowly avoiding the top of the man's head. Something inside of him told him that Katsuki wasn't that dumb to challenge the pro hero, but by the smirk that settled on the blonde's face, he knew that he was wrong. Sorry, my hand slipped. The blonde settled on saying as the man turned towards the rest of the class and held up the device in his hand. Katsuki saluted at him, and Izuku had to fight back a chuckle. Know your maximum first, Eraserhead said as he showed them the scale, making Izuku grin as the blonde left everyone else in awe. He had already seen the blonde throw away stuff that belonged to his ex-classmates many times, so he guessed that he had been kind of expecting it to be at least 700 meters. 750 meters? That's crazy, a boy remarked, and Izuku felt himself feeling better, feeling as if he had been the one to get the comment rather than the angry blonde. What's this? It looks really fun, a pink girl said, and Izuku's gaze shifted to the pro hero, the scowl that the man wore making it obvious that she shouldn't have said that. It looks fun, huh? Their homeroom teacher murmured, making all of them turn towards him with a startled expression. You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that the whole time? The black-haired hero grinned, and their eyes met, making Izuku's heart beat fast in his chest. Alright. Whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential and will be faced with expulsion. As soon as Eraserhead said that, Izuku felt as if someone had dumped cold water all over him, even though he had known that the man had been planning to expel someone, to most likely expel him. Hearing it still made him feel bitter inside. The man was fully targeting him by his words as he said that out loud, as if saying that Izuku would be the one to fail, and the grin on his face made it clear that he expected him to realize that too. He felt a couple of gazes on himself, but ignored them, trying to meet the man's eyes, as the feeling of betrayal was overcome with silent rage. He had come in first place during the entrance exam, and it wasn't by luck. Izuku had earned his place, earned his scholarship, and he wasn't about to let anyone take away his right. Izuku had gotten the most points with hard work only, both in the practical entrance exam and the written one. There was no way that he was gonna come in last place. There were others who had mental quirks. He wasn't the only one who didn't have a physical quirk in their class. Welcome to UA. At that moment Izuku wrote this man's name under the people that he should never trust, wondering why he had hoped a teacher would be different, no matter what they did in their personal time. Katsuki watched as Izuku threw the ball and felt himself grin when the number 79 showed up on the charts, putting him in 14th place. The name Eraserhead wasn't foreign to him, no hero's name was foreign to him thanks to the fact that his childhood friend was a fanatic, but he would say that he hadn't really expected the man to act this way. It was easy to pick up on habits of others, granted with a quirk like his and having been surrounded by King smoochers all his life. This man, he was not like that, not like those BS nerds, but he wasn't so much better than them either. He just wasn't sure if he was acting this way towards the nerd because of the rumors, or because of the fact that he was quirkless. Katsuki aced all the challenges and felt proud as the nerd never placed last place, not even in a single one of the challenges. The Beastard had even passed him during the 50-meter dash and the parkour, but he guessed that he must have expected that with how many times Izuku had outrun his bullies in the past. Maybe he could ask the nerd for some tips on parkour running. They did a couple more challenges, like the sit-up challenge in which Izuku passed him once again, and the long-distance race that the both of them had tied in. Katsuki only had eyes for the boy who felt like a brother to him, while Izuku sometimes stared at his classmates, his hands moving around as he took invisible notes. Their eyes met, and he scoffed when Izuku looked away. He walked towards him and stood beside him, sending him a sideways glance. Don't talk to me, Bakugu. He scoffed at that, bringing his arms together on his chest. What dash? Stand at least 5 meters away from me. Oh, so they were playing this game again, like King hell they were? Bakuga dash. Shut up you dumps, I know what the FCK you are trying to do, and don't approve of it. He stole another sideway glance at the nerd and grinned. So, who the FCK are you planning on staying away from this time? He watched as the nerd looked at him, scowling. Yeah, no, Katsuki wasn't about to take any more of Izuku's, I'll just ruin your reputation if I'm with you, attitude. FCK off? He let out an offended gasp at that, bringing his hands to his chest. My little boy dash. Anyone that's too honest, too observative, too friendly, or just too Katsuki. He felt his left eyebrow twitch at that, as he brought his hands to his chest. Too Katsuki? Yep, so talk to you hopefully never. He watched after the little Kerr, as he went to pass the next challenge, never even looking back at him. That Beastard, he could avoid him as much as he liked. Katsuki wasn't gonna leave the nerd but all alone these next 3 years just because of his messed up mentality. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 AM. SAH. HYPM. NKM. SKVK. The police, NT. ST. 1 Ya. Ma. Ta. TI. OU. MO. DK. EK. KK. RS. MS. KJ. HS. FT. ST. Teach. KB. MM. My. HS. Ya. 1B. NM. ST. TT. Ye. SK. YK. KT. JH. Other students, MT. NHT. MH. Pro Heroes, STGT. YTML. RUM. KH. EFMJ. KSO. TTFG. Training Camp ARC. R2PB. TSR. YCT. SSM. KI. 8 Bullets ARC. SSN. KBG. Villains, Higres. TCS. IFO. HTT. TTD. KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't really like or hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that just think that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. As soon as the tests were finished, Ibag-sensei directed them back to the training grounds. Okay, before you get your test results, The total is simply the marks you got from each test and the points in which you will get your grading with. It's a waste of time to explain verbally, so I'll show you the results all at once. A hologram appeared out of thin air, showcasing their results. He was in F King 3rd place, while the little Beastard was in 9th place, the last place having gone to a perverted F cur named Minor Mineta. The red-eyed hero clicked the button once again, making the hologram disappear. By the way, he said with a tired sigh, I was lying about the expulsion. The hero began to say, and Katsuki scoffed, it was a rational deception to draw out the upper limits of your quirks. T turned into one that resembled a Cheshire cat. It was obvious, to be honest. I am surprised by how easily you all fell for it, someone say, but Katsuki ignored them, his gaze trained on Izuku, whose gaze never left that of their homeroom teacher. He had a feeling why, and it made his blood boil in anger at the man. With that said, we're done here. There are handouts with the curriculum and such in the classroom, so when you get back, look over them. And that was it, as the man simply turned around and left them there. Katsuki looked back at Izuku, and felt a small explosion go off in his hand when he saw the brunette that was standing too dim and close to him. He didn't care that he was being jealous, but if Izuku only pushed him away he wouldn't stand for it. Hey man! Katsuki turned around, and scoffed at the sight of the redhead in front of him. Another sunshine? You were pretty manly there. I'm Kirishima Aidru. He scoffed, not like he would remember his name anyway. Name's Bakugu Katsuki. The bell went off, and he sighed as others started to pass by them. You remember where the class was, man? I'm kinda bad with directions, getting lost all the time. He let out a deep sigh. Years ago, he would have responded in a much aggressive way, but after everything that had happened. Follow me, shark face, I ain't an idiot. Not manly, dude, not manly at all. He watched as Izuku passed by them, leaving Pink Cheeks behind all alone, lost in her thoughts. You gonna cry, Machi face? He yelled at her, and watched as she scoffed and tailed after them to their classroom. He sent a glare towards their new homeroom teacher as he passed by him, and kicked a rock. Some F King hero who discriminates. With the way that the man squinted his eyes, he knew that he had heard him, and grinned to himself. Just a Shoyuta. The kid was impressive, to say the least, but he guessed that he should have expected it with how the kid had taken down all the robots one by one during the entrance exam. If Nedzu hadn't told him to expel the kid with good reasons, he might have even seen him as a potential hero in training. 9th place. That was saying something. Maybe, if he had been in 18th or 19th place, he could have expelled him along with everyone after him, but this year somewhat showed him much more promise than he had ever seen before, and that was certainly saying something. Shoyuta found himself thinking of the greenette, of the way that he had exceeded way past his expectations in every single challenge. A quirkless kid, beating those with quirks in a quirk assessment test. It brought back memories when he thought about it, of himself in high school. Shoyuta wondered what his past self would have said if he had seen him now. He sighed as he leaned his back against the chair, staring at the ceiling of the teacher's room. He closed his eyes and thought about after the test when the kid had talked to the brunette. If what Nedzu had said had been 100% true. He sighed once again, straightening up. Maybe, just maybe there was hope for the kid. He couldn't change the kid's past, but the future was still unknown. For the safety of the kids and others, we need to what needs to be done. He shook his head, ignoring his thoughts. He wouldn't waste extra time on the boy, but he would observe him. He would take any chance he got to expel him, but if he didn't give him any. If the boy managed to survive his teachings till the end of the term, he would let him stay. If Nedzu didn't expel him, that was. He sighed for the nth time that day. He was sure that Nedzu would find a way to expel him, no matter how his exam went. Shoyuta took another glance at the kid's file and thought of the way that the boy's eyes had sparkled when he had entered the class before Shoyuta had glared at him. He closed his eyes, trying to get the image of the boy's sparkling eyes, and closed his computer. He had to get to class. Izuku. Izuku rolled his shoulders as he left the class before the others, feeling sore from both the test and the beating that he had gotten the other day. He heard silent footsteps and took a glance at the other, sighing as his eyes met the eyes of the blonde. What the FCK you're looking at? The blonde huffed out, and Izuku sighed, deciding to just ignore it. Hey you two. Are you guys heading to the station too? He sighed once again as he heard the girl, Uraraka, call out to him. I'm heading to the library, he answered and fastened his pace. Why the FCK are you answering for me, you little? The blonde growled, and Izuku felt himself sigh once again. Are you not, Bakugu? Izuku asked and watched as the other boy's growl turned into a scoff before turning into a smirk. No, I'm heading to the library too, the blonde answered, and Izuku sighed before turning towards Uraraka. I think that Ida-san is going to be heading to the station too. I heard him talking last time, and the same goes for Yaoyorozu-san, Aoyama-san, and Kaminari-san. You can go with them if you want, he said and turned around, starting to walk once again towards his destination. He had to study more on a certain teacher's quirk, not knowing what to think of the man who once used to be his idol. Izuku. Izuku took another glance at the explosive blonde and sighed in irritation, deciding to just ignore him as he sat closer to the window. It had been like that the last time too, the blonde standing a couple of meters away without saying anything, or closing the distance between them. That had gone on for 2 hours, before he had gotten off the train. Katsuki was simply being dumb once again. He looked down at his notes and went back to his studying. Prohiro Eraserhead, also known as Aizawa Shoyuda, a teacher at UA. During all of his recorded fights, which are not that many, he has demonstrated an incredible amount of combat power, strategy creating skills, weapon control along with quirk knowledge. He has also shown immense strength while fighting with villains. He is able to fight those who are even 10 times bigger than himself, as it had been recorded during an accident in Narahata many years ago, where the villain or the civilian that had been under the control of a drag had been 20 times bigger than himself. His quirk erasure is a quirk that gives its user the ability to nullify another person's quirk by looking at the person, which most likely won't even lose its effect after the targeted person is out of eyesight. His quirk has many weak points. One of the biggest ones is that most mutant-class quirks are immune to it. The effects of the quirk can only last as long as the user does not blink. The quirk also causes the user's eyes to change color while also causing the person's hair to raise up, which is a big weak point considering anyone that realizes this can use it effectively to their benefit. There are many gadgets which would most likely benefit its user, such as something that makes it so their hair is always up, like how Present Mike does it, which is explained in section 57 in short details, or goggles that both protect and water the person's eyes to prevent their eyes drying up. Another. His head shot up as his makeshift phone, which he had found at the beach, rang. He closed his notes and put them back into his backpack, sighing. Izuku got up, sighing as he slung his backpack against his shoulder, once again sighing and cursing himself for forgetting his injured shoulder. He felt 2 eyes on him and froze for a second in reflex before turning to the side and looking at the blonde who was watching him closely. Izuku knew that Katsuki wouldn't gain anything from helping him because they weren't friends. They had only been companions, protecting each other at certain times and helping each other when it was needed, so why was Bakugu still following him? When Izuku was only trying to help him, when he was only trying to protect him from cruel rumors and glances? He got out of the train and started to fasten his steps, hoping that the other boy would just give up on him. It shouldn't have been that hard, considering how many people had given up on him again and again. Izuku speedwalked for 17 minutes, feeling both victorious and disappointed at the fact that the blonde hadn't caught up to him. There were 20 more minutes till the beginning of the lesson when Izuku got to class, so Izuku placed his head on his table and sighed as he rested his eyes for a while, hoping to be able to rest his eyes for some time till the beginning of the lesson. To Izuku's surprise, their first lesson ended up being English, and it was actually normal. Well, aside from the fact that it was given by Present Mike, who he had used to listen to when he was a 10-year-old boy. A 10-year-old who had been trying to find light in his broken world. But now, the sound of the Bond man made him feel suffocated. The man did his best to give an exciting lesson to his classmates, but the glances that he sent Izuku now and then told him all he needed to know. One more person who hated him, another one of his old heroes that wanted nothing to do with him. The rest was the same suffocating feeling he had always known. If someone was to ask him what his favorite time was at school, he guessed that he would say that it was lunchtime, where he could be alone with himself, where he could go outside and take a breather, escape the suffocating feeling. It didn't really matter to him that he missed eating his lunch, Because that was what he had been used to till now. Missing 1 or 2 meals a day was no big deal. Young Midoriya, he got up, at first out of respect, but then felt himself relax at the sight of All Might, who made him feel warm all of a sudden. The first person that had told him that he could be a hero after the loss of his parents, the first person to actually smile at the sight of him without being forced to. All Might, sir, he said, putting on a small smile, and felt himself brighten even more when the man raised up a small lunch set. Would you want to join me for lunch? The symbol of peace asked, and Izuku slowly nodded, because how could he say no to him when he had gone through the trouble of packing something for him? So the Greenette followed the number 1 pro hero, wanting to treasure the man's presence, because he knew that it would only last till the hero heard about the rumors. And after that he would be thrown away, once again. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The police, NT, ST. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, RTPB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. FO, HTT, TTD, KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't really like Izuku, or those that hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him, or those who see him as a normal thing in their lives, so they have accepted his presence. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad or those who are literally obsessed with him. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. I am coming through the door like a normal person. He looked up, instantly brightening up at the sight of the number 1 pro hero. Izuku ignored everyone else, and focused on the pro hero, who simply explained to them what they would be doing during his class. I teach hero basic training. It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being a hero. You'll take the most units of this subject. Let's get right to it. This is what we'll be doing today. Izuku chuckled from the inside at the man's gestures and how dramatic they were. Combat training. And to go with that are these. The man waved his hand, causing rectangular figures to come out of the walls, all of their classroom numbers written on each of the boxes. Izuku felt a rush of adrenaline at the sight of them, feeling his heart beating even faster from excitement. He wondered how his costume would come out, feeling somewhat giddy inside. Costumes made based on your Quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. It felt as if the man knew their excitement, as he kept it short. Izuku was one of the first to get up, not really being able to hold on to himself as he turned around, only stopping when a hand landed on his shoulder. All Might Sensei? He asked softly, and felt empty at the look that the man gave him, as if he was pitying him. The man squeezed his shoulder softly, but it was still enough to send sparks of pain through him as he held back a hiss. Young Midoriya, he began to say, his voice soft, I am sorry to inform you that there was a light problem while making your costume. Izuku formed and looked back to see that the number started from 2 and ended at 21. His number hadn't even been written on the lockers. How had he not realized that? Normally there are only 20 students in one class, so the one in charge had forgotten to redesign the lockers for 21 students, and had simply forgotten to write the number 1. Izuku felt his mood dampen even more and more at that, and held back a sigh. He guessed that he should have expected it. So that is why dash, the man smiled at him as he took out a small suitcase from behind him, but this one looked much professional than the other metallic ones. This one was black, and had a small green symbol in the center of it. It looked like a green bunny, but Izuku knew with just a single glance that it was All Might's symbol that was the same shade of green as Izuku's hair, instead of All Might's. I went to my old sidekicks, Sir Naitai's agency a couple of weeks ago and requested the design team there to make your costume for you. They are an enthusiastic bunch, but it will still be another week or so before they are finished. Izuku took the suitcase from the man's hand and opened it, to be met with the sight of his utility belt and goggles. They had only finished with the 2 of these when I got there this morning, so I decided to simply bring it with me. Once again, I am so sorry for the inconvenience, my boy dash. Izuku cut him off by shaking his head, feeling tears gather in his eyes. This was too much. It was too much for Izuku to handle right now. He sniffed and let a smile settle on his face. All Might, sir, thank you so much. He wanted to hug the man, but held himself back, reminding himself just where they were and let out a deep breath. All Might hadn't needed to do something like this. He hadn't needed to prepare lunch for him yesterday, hadn't needed to go to his agency and to request him a hero suit. Izuku hadn't been shown this much kindness in years, and it made his heart ache somewhat. But sir, thank you so much, he added and gratefully placed the box on his desk before taking out his utility belt. Of course, now I think that it might be best if you put on your school P uniform, all right? The man asked and Izuku wondered how someone could smile that brightly all the time. Izuku nodded and quickly left the classroom with his P uniform under his armpit and the utility belt in his hand, running to the toilets to get ready. As soon as he got to the arena, his eyes filled with tears for the second time ever since class had began, as soon as he caught sight of Bakugu's costume. He hadn't lied when he had said that he would be wearing Auntie Mitsuki's old hero outfit. Katsuki had a black bodysuit on which had a red X on the front of it, along with a gauntlet, knee protectors, black combat boots with red lines on the sides of his combat shoes, and a black mask, a replica of Izuku's father's old vigilante mask. The final piece was the jacket he had been wearing that had belonged to Auntie Mitsuki once. He guessed that was why the gauntlets had been made smaller than planned, so that Katsuki didn't need to change its design at all. There were a couple of different versions of the jacket. He could name them and draw them from his memory alone, and knew with just a single glance that this one was the first jacket that Uncle Masaru had designed for his wife. Izuku took in a deep breath and looked around himself and at his other classmates. Most of the costumes looked as though they had been designed by newbies. As though the ones who had designed them had no experience at all in this field, which he guessed was true in a sense. The only other professional-looking one was a lavender-haired kid that felt somewhat familiar to him. He stole a glance Shinso, who wore dark purple combat boots with a dark gray bodysuit that had purple spider thread designs all over it. A binding cloth hang on his neck, similar to the one that Eraser had used, along with purple goggles. Shinso looked cool, if he was being honest, but it felt more like a knockout version of their homeroom teacher's outfit. Izuku took in a deep breath and looked away, adding another name to his mental list. He looked around at the others, feeling somewhat angry to see what the girls were wearing. Was that even legal? To make underage students wear stuff like those? It was one of the many flaws of Japan, how they sexualize their female pro-heroes, to distract the villains, and to use them as their faces. Uraraka already looked uncomfortable in her skin-tight bodysuit, while Hagakure was literally naked and Yaoyorozu wasn't any better. Had any of them been told that they could ask for suits that were made from a material closer to their skin? And that they didn't need to show skin for their quirk to actually work? Maybe, in the future, he could mention it sometime. They were bound to have group projects and do things together at one point. If he gave them a small tip, no one would know. Izuku made a side note to look into both Hagakure's and Yaoyorozu's quirks in the future before looking away. Todoroki's outfit, it reminded him more of a villain than a hero, but he knew that he wasn't the judge of that. Aside from that, Kirishima's outfit was also pretty cool when he thought about it, but he wondered what the civilians would think about it when they saw it for the first time. He hadn't even talked with the redhead, but he had seen him talk with Bakugu, and anyone who could talk to him without trying to lick up to him, or trying to please him couldn't be a bad person. None of his classmates had been mean to him just yet, hadn't looked at him in a bad way, hadn't gone out of their way to antagonize him. Izuku didn't want any of them to be the center of any rumors like he was. "That's great, everyone. You all look really cool," their teacher's voice boomed, and Izuku fought back the need to snicker. One of the students was definitely having problems accepting himself. The other other 5 might have felt too uncomfortable because of how tight their outfits were, and he didn't have a costume just yet. "Now, shall we begin, you zygotes?" A cheer was heard from the class. "For this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. Without basic training?" the girl, Tsuyu asked, and the pro-hero made a chopping motion in the air. "This is a real battle to understand those basics. However, the key this time is that there are no robots that you can just beat up. How will wins and losses be determined? Can we beat them up anyway? Will the punishment be expulsion, like with Aizawa-sensei? How shall we be split up? Isn't this cape crazy? What the frick?" Izuku turned towards the boy he had saved during the entrance exam before turning back towards his sensei. Was everyone a little child that they couldn't wait till the man finished talking? "I'll answer all your questions." All Might started to say, and Izuku held back a snicker as the number 1 hero took out a little script. "The situation is that villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes are trying to dispose of that. The heroes need to catch the villains or get the nuclear weapon back in the allowed time. The villains need to protect the nuclear weapon for the whole time or catch the heroes. Teams and opponents will be determined by drawing lots. They are being decided so haphazardly." The engine boy, he remembered as Ida asked, and he sighed. "Maybe it is to make it as real as possible?" Uraraka answered back, and Izuku nodded at her answer, even though no one could see him nod. "If that's all, let's do this quickly." The man boomed and put down a box, letting every student pick up a ball with a letter on top of it. Izuku waited till the end to pick a ball and sighed when he got it. He looked up to see everyone had already found their partners except a purple-haired boy, who was asking around to see who his partner was. Already feeling even more drained, Izuku sighed and headed to the grape-haired boy, already trying to make a plan in his head. Izuku took a glance at his partner and sighed at the way that the boy was muttering about how unfair it was for the teams to be drawn in lots. "Mineta-san," he started and watched as the boy scoffed at him. "We will be needing a good ground plan. I really hope that we are in the team that guards the bombs so that it will be easier to work." "How? My quirk might be good, but it's not useful in a mission like this. It will be easier if we are chosen as heroes. And on top of that, I am stuck with a quirkless dash. You were in last place yesterday, while I got 9th place. Izuku reminded him and held back a smirk as the boy looked away from him. "Now let's decide the teams." All Might started once again, his voice booming as everyone turned back at him. "First teams to go are," he trailed off, most likely to create more suspense before the screen next to him light up, just as he took out a red ball from the bag in his hand. Team D, Midoriya and Mineta as the villains against Team D, Shinso and Ida as the heroes. The villain team will be given 5 minutes to get ready to strategize. And after that, the hero team will be allowed to enter. Everyone else will be in the monitoring room while this small practice game. The rules are simple dash. He pointed toward Team D, find the bomb and deactivate it. Izuku held back a grin as the blonde turned to them this time, and you two guard it till the timer goes off. Izuku hit his left shoe on the ground 3 times, before doing the same with the right shoe as the others left, hoping that he didn't end up destroying it. He didn't really want to get on Yashitoru-san's bad side anytime soon. Villains, go in first and set up. In 5 minutes, the hero team will break in, and the battle will start. He trailed after Mineta, leaving the lavender-haired boy and the blue-haired boy alone, already having created a couple of plans to pass the test. It had been fairly easy for them to find the bomb, and Izuku had no doubt that the heroes team would have an easy time too. Why, just why did we have to be against those two? And we are villains on top of that. The grape-haired boy whined, and Izuku sighed. Mineta-san, he started to say, I have an idea, a plan, would you like to know about it? What else can I do other than to listen to you? Izuku ignored it and continued, so, Our enemy is the two of them, Ida-san and Shinsu-san. Ida-san has engines in his legs, which means that it is likely that he won't be that cautious of his surroundings. It is also likely that the two of them will separate if we cause enough distractions. We can take care of Ida-san very easily by making him come here. And how will that work? Izuku pointed at the ceiling. Can you maybe stick the bomb to the ceiling with your ball and also put ball everywhere to make it so that Ida-san won't be able to move past the door? He asked, and the other boy stared at him blankly before he also smirked. Izuku accepted this as a yes, and continued his explanation. And then there is Shinsu-san, who is much more dangerous than Ida-san. What do you mean by that? Ida-kun is more powerful in both quirk and built and combat dash. How can you say that without seeing them fight even once? Have you seen them fight before? Mineta shook his head, frowning. Yeah, me neither, but I can tell that Shinsu-san is stronger than Ida-san and is much fitter than him too from how he carries himself. I can bet that Shinsu-san also has more strategy and combat skills, even though both of them are relatives of heroes. Shinsu-san's binding cloth is also going to be a problem. Do you remember Eraserhead's binding cloth? Yeah. Shinsu-san has an exact copy of Sensei's binding cloth, and I don't think that it is there just as an accessory. I hadn't even realized that. Don't worry, I doubt anyone else did. Everyone was busy admiring their own costumes. Anyway, Shinsu-san's quirk is brainwashing, and it mostly has something to do with talking, so make sure to stay quiet if you ever bump into him. We will stick the bomb to the ceiling, put some of your ball around the entrance, and I'll go ahead to trick Shinsu-san to come after me. He will probably think that he can trick me because of the rumors. What rumors? Mineta asked, and Izuku's head turned around to look at the boy. Did he not know? He sighed, figuring that it was better this way. Don't worry, I doubt that it will affect you. Now shall we stick the bomb to the ceiling? I think that I saw a ladder close to here. You can climb up first to stick your ball to the ceiling, and then I can try and stick the bomb to them since it is not that heavy, but it is pretty big. Alright, should I dash? They both stopped as soon as a buzz was heard, and Izuku sighed. New plan, I will stick one of my small explosives close to the door. There will be a lot of ball lying around, and when Ida-san passes the trap, the explosive will explode and send the ball towards him. The rest is the same, alright? Izuku waited till the boy nodded and then got up to set the trap, which proved to be fairly easy. It was a string trap, which would activate the bomb as soon as some pulled on it. After the trap was ready, Izuku left the room, going to find the lavender-haired teen. Nedzu plus recovery girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The police, NT, ST. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, RTPB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. FO, HTT, TTD, KCA. The crossed-out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed-out ones, XX, are those that don't like Izuku or those that hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad. Dark italic and underlined ones, XX, those who are pretty obsessed with him, in somewhat of a stalker way, or simply toxic love. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are Yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. It was silent as Izuku trailed down the corridors, being wary of the two before hiding as soon as he heard someone rushing towards his location. He took a peek and watched as Ida passed by him. After being sure that the other had passed, he got out of his place and continued to walk. If the other boy was going on ahead, then that meant that the two were going to be working separately and that they had planned for Ida to fight whoever had gone ahead from the villains while Shinso took control of the other person and they won. So, you managed to hide from Ida. I must say I am impressed. He turned towards the other side and grinned as he saw the owner of the voice. Izuku got his capture tape ready and looked the other in his eyes. Not answering? Izuku wondered if the boy was planning on beating him with only his brainwashing quirk, as he too did not move an inch. The boy was asking him stuff, trying to make him talk or to Izuku grinned as he realized how the teen's quirk worked. Is this your plan? He asked back and watched the boy's grin turn into a scowl, which only lasted a second. Shinso also got his weapon ready and stood in a fighting position, just like Izuku had done. Well, actually I was wondering something, Shinso began to say, right before he darted forward, trying to land a punch to Izuku's face, about the rumors and stuff. The greenette easily dodged it, scoffing. Are they really true? That somehow made him stumble a bit, causing an opening for Shinso as the lavender-haired boy landed a kick on his side. You don't act like a person who would go ahead and hurt those who try to get close to him. Izuku darted forward and used his palm to hit the other boy in the chin, making him back away at the impact. And it just doesn't make sense, none of it does, really. The other boy recovered and threw his binding tape at him, making Izuku roll away and crouch to make it harder for the boy to catch him with his tape. I know how those with villainous quirks are treated in an orphanage. Shinso advanced towards him, making him jump back once again, just as the boy swung his arm, making Izuku realize that he favored his right hook more, so it wouldn't make sense for you to just try to throw away everything. The quirkless boy stopped, raising his gaze to look at the lavender-haired boy, who was either bluffing or... He wasn't bluffing, Shinso was lying. He was lying through his teeth when he said that he couldn't understand why Izuku would act different from the rumors implied. To others, there were many things, a couple of answers, but for them, Shinso and him had been somehow cut out of the same cloth, just different designs. Their pasts could be similar, but never the same. Some things could never change, and the thin line between them, that separated the quirkless and the villainous from the heroic, could never disappear. They could resemble each other, but couldn't be more different at the end of the day, because Shinso had a quirk, someone that had saved him from the hellhole that he had been born into, and he wasn't like Izuku. But the fact that they were made out of the same cloth could never change, and those like them knew the power of fear and how it could either protect them or simply bring them down and tear them to shreds. There were two answers to the question he had asked, two obvious ones, and Izuku knew that the boy was asking which one was true, which one was a lie. In a swift move, he took a hold of Shinso's leg as the other attempted to kick him, and pushed it back hard, watching as the lavender-haired boy fell back. Izuku wondered if the other was messing with him to win a measly fight, or was simply searching for his truth rather than the lies which the society had believed to be true. He gracefully jumped up and sat on top of the fallen boy, immobilizing him by pushing his wrist on his back before tying his hands together. The villains win. All Might's voice boomed through the speakers and the greenette sighed, guessing that Mineta had in fact taken care of Ida. He got off the boy, and started to untie his binds as softly as he could, not wanting to cause any unneeded damage. Shisnison, he began, as he undid the last tie, you should ask your questions more carefully, and know what you are really asking for at the end of the day, know which truth that you are looking for or if you are looking for any truths at all to begin with. Which truth? Izuku turned around as he started to head back in the way he had come here, told there to help Mineta if he needed him. The truth that you wish to hear like everyone else, or the truth which you are willing to listen no matter how dark. He turned the corner after that, feeling even more drained each passing second. Each step he took felt heavier than the last, and when he finally reached where he had left Mineta, he found himself smiling a bit at the way that the purple net was jumping around, happy about their win. It was weird. He guessed how a pervert like him could be excited about anything else than perverted stuff. It leaves a much better feeling than when you try to woo girls by catcalling them, does it not? The smile fell off of Mineta's face at that, and Izuku let out a sigh, walking towards Ida with the capture tape in his hands. Since they were pretty much Quirk-proof, he taped his hands with the capture tape to the tip of his fingers and slowly started to take out the ball with his hand. It was interesting how different the ball were than he had imagined. They reminded him of a normal hand-sized ball, which would jump whenever you threw, and he wondered if these were like that too. Izuku wondered how they could even be as sticky as they were in the first place. He glanced down at the captured boy and felt kind of bad when he saw one of the purple ball in the boy's mouth, leaving him unable to talk. "Mineta-san?" Izuku asked, and the boy slowly came towards him. The greenette had the feeling that it wouldn't matter if he acted like this with the boy right now. He trusted All Might to not tell anyone about how he acted during the lessons, and it seemed like not everyone knew about his reputation in the class. Him talking with Mineta would not cause any troubles for the purple net. "If you don't mind me asking, how does your quirk really work? I mean, I know that you have sticky hair, but that can't be all? I mean, your quirk doesn't affect your hands, and I think that it won't affect any part of your body either. I guess? I mean, I had never wondered about my quirk that much before. I can only stick my hair to stuff and my scalp bleeds if I use it too much. You never thought of how your body is unable to stick to them? Or how you can take a hold of your ball easier? Or did you ever think about creating a suit that would maybe stick just like your hair? It could even help you climb walls and it would be perfect for stealth missions? Or maybe that might not be that much of a good idea, considering how everything that you bumped into would stick to you, but what about making a bomb out of them? It can be liquefied and dash." Izuku stopped his mumbling and went back to freeing Ida, who had stopped trying to get out and was looking at him weirdly now. The greenette sighed and did his best to ignore the engine boy as he continued to free him with the gloves that he had made out of the capture tape. "I never." Mineta trailed off, and Izuku sighed, throwing off the binding tape to the side before turning towards the purple net. Izuku shrugged. "Well, you are kinda smart. I think that you never thought that you could think about these kind of things, you know?" He turned towards Ida, and after seeing that he was silently rising from his place, he turned towards the entrance of the door and got out as little robots entered the room, most likely to clean up Mineta's ball for the next team. The three of them walked towards the exit, and Izuku frowned a bit when he saw that. Shinso had yet to move from his place, his gaze far away with a scowl decorating his face. "Shinso-kun?" Ida began to say, and the lavender-haired boy's head shot up, and his eyes settled on his once again. Izuku held back the urge to look away, and for a second, the two of them just stared at each other, before the other simply shook his head and turned around. The four of them went towards the monitor room, where the rest of their classmates had been watching them. The silence that surrounded them felt even heavier every passing second, and Izuku could already feel an upcoming headache at the back of his eyes, along with the feeling of pending doom on his shoulders. "Toshinori." Toshinori felt himself grin as he watched the way that the boy strategized and felt mesmerized with young Midoriya's smooth movements. He had no doubt that the heroes' team couldn't hear anything from the villains either. "Sensei, is there a way in which we can hear the conversation?" Young Yaoyorozu asked, and he shook his head. "I'm afraid not, young Yaoyorozu," he stated before turning back to the screen as the two set on a small explosive bomb before Mineta started to cover it and Midoriya started to set the trap which would activate the bomb. "I would have never thought that Mineta's quirk could be used like that." Young Kaminari added, which made him grin bigger. After all, young Midoriya had been the one to capture the slime villain with 2 bottles simply by tricking it. He watched as the greenette left the shorter boy to put the final touches to the trap before hiding from young Ida. They were truly blessed with bright minds this year, he guessed. The rest of the fight went fairly quick in his opinion, and he wondered how young Midoriya would have fared if they had been on the hero's side rather than the villain, but he had the feeling that he would have still found a way at the end. Young Mineta and young Ida's encounter with each other finished pretty quickly, while the fight between the other 2 students lasted a bit longer. In the end, he felt proud somehow, as he announced Team A as the winners. "Oh, Kemsima, he was already picking favorites, wasn't he? That battle was so manly." Young Kirishima commented, and he nodded, feeling somewhat glad that nothing bad had happened. He felt scared, afraid of the chance that Nedzu was watching them from the cameras, and felt a shudder go through him at the thought of it. "Wait," he turned towards young Jairu along with the rest of the students, Isn't Midoriya the one from the rumors? At the entrance exam. He felt all the blood drain from his face as he took in a deep breath. He took in a deep breath. Class 1. It is not very heroic to blindly believe in rumors. Which rumors? Oh, you mean the ones about a delinquent kid who attacked his parents. Young Hagakure. The invisible girl's gloves moved towards him, before turning away from him once again. This was a mess. I also heard about that. They called him a demon mastermind. They also said that no one could even look him in the eyes. Karo. Young Azui. He is the one from the rumors, but you guys don't understand. Young Uraraka started to say, to defend the greenette, but she was cut off by the 4 newcomers before she could even finish. Izuku. He knew something was wrong as soon as he got in the monitoring room. Well, how could he not, when everyone in the room was looking at them, all of them silent while All Might's smile had tightened? Something had happened. Izuku wasn't sure how he knew, but he knew that they now knew about everything. He felt back the urge to pull at the neck of his turtleneck, to pull at the black cloth that covered his body, suffocating him along with the stares of his classmates. They knew about everything. Izuku clenched and unclenched his hands, ignoring the feeling that made him feel as though he was choking, and chose to lower his gaze to the floor, finding his hands safer to look at. He felt glad, somewhat, that the other 3 were in front of him, and he knew that at least they weren't staring at him. Someone coughed. He wasn't sure who did, but someone did, and as if a spell had been broken, everyone looked back at All Might once again. Well, All Might began after clapping his hands. The EP for this battle is certainly young Mineta. Would anyone want to tell us why? Izuku was glad that it was not himself as he saw the other boy's eyes grow big in disbelief. Wait me. Momo raised her hand and All Might nodded at her. Although the plan was mostly Midoriya's and both of them were really active during the battle, Midoriya hesitated while fighting with Shinso, most likely letting his emotions get in the way of the fight. Well, that was correct, the number 1 pro hero said, and sent the girl with the pony hair a thumbs up. Just like that, their turn was over, and Izuku watched as the other 2 teams got ready, while he made small theories about who could win. It was relaxing somewhat, to be able to take off his mind off of the weird, stare down, and to get lost analyzing the small face-off. He guessed that he could give credit to his classmates for that, as all of their quirks were amazing on so different levels and so many ways. They were truly amazing and interesting. He took mental notes, as his hand moved at his side, most likely, writing down his invisible notes like Kaken said he did sometimes. The first fight with Yaoyorozu and Uraraka against Aoru and Hagakure ended in favor of the 2 girls, with a perfect plan, in All Might's words. He didn't say that if Hagakure and Ojiro could have won if they had simply made a better plan at first. The second fight between Todoroki and Shuji against Kirishima and Siro sadly ended much quirk than any of them could have guessed. It was obvious that both of the boys hadn't been ready for Todoroki to freeze the whole building, because if they had known, they could have come up with a better plan. It had been an unfair fight when he thought about it. God, Izuku would probably need to separate a notebook just for these kinds of exercises if they were all going to be so awesome. Kaminari and Gyro ended up going against Tokoyami and Tsuyu, which he would admit that the way that Kaminari took out Tokoyami with his electricity was pretty amazing, if the boy knew about Dark Shadow's weakness. Izuku later learned that the boy didn't and that he had only tried to take out the other 2 with his electricity, which made Izuku sigh from the inside. How could everyone in his class be so self-confident? If the boy had not managed to take out the other 2, then Gyro would have been all alone in both defending the bomb and trying to take out the heroes team, which he saw as a bit cruel. The last match, in his opinion, was both the smartest plan yet at the same time most brutal out of all of them. Katsuki and Sato had gone against Ishido, Aoyama and Kuda. It had also been an eye-opener for the others at the same time. Only the villain team had won, ever since the beginning, making everyone think that the villains had a higher chance of winning than the others, but when Katsuki and Sato's team had won, even though they had gone against 3 people at the same time, and had been heroes, it certainly ended all of their doubts. The villains team had not won because they were villains, they had just been better during the whole exercise. Izuku listened, as All Might deemed Katsuki as the MIP of the whole exercise and Momo as the MIP of the whole exercise. It felt refreshing to hearth thoughts of others as his classmates talked about the battles and voiced their ideas while they all left the monitoring room and towards their classroom. Midori Yakuen. Ida started and Izuku stopped, turning towards the taller boy. Yes, Ida-san? He asked and watched as the boy took a deep breath before pushing his glasses back with his finger. I am sorry, he started, but I don't think that you should be in the hero course. Izuku wondered why he had thought that his day would have ended in a good note, after everything that had happened during the day, and sighed. He was too used to people telling him that he couldn't be a hero, that he couldn't get into UA, but he found that it still hurt, that there were those who thought that he couldn't be a hero even after that he had gotten in UA. I understand, Izuku said, softly, no longer having any energy to hold his head up high. Thank you for your input. He turned around as he followed after his classmates, no longer having any energy. He had another class now, most likely someone else who was going to make him feel suffocated without even saying a thing. Izuku felt tired, and hugged himself as he thought of the fact that it had only been a couple of days since the beginning of the year. He just hoped that things got better soon, that he didn't end up being the first to give up. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH, HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The police, NT, ST. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, R2PB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. FO, HTT, TTD, KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't like Izuku or those that hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad. Dark italic and underlined ones, XX, those who are pretty obsessed with him, in somewhat of a stalker way, or it's simply toxic love. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are Yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. He slammed the door as soon as he got inside his room, throwing his backpack to the side as he let out a small growl through clenched teeth. I don't think that you should be in the hero course. Thank you for your input. F. King Little SHT. That was it? Only that? Thank you for your input? The FCK? Katsuki quickly dialed Izuku's phone number and waited as the other's phone rang. Izuku, he screamed at the little device and heard a tired hum from the other side, which helped calm him down a bit. Katsuki, you know that dash. What the FCK was that? Huh? He asked, cutting off the greenette with a growl. Katsuki was met with silence, however, as the greenette simply sighed. The sigh somehow made something break in him as he let out an explosion with his empty hand. That's it. Didn't we F King decide to be there for each other dash? He stopped, when a crashing sound came from the other side, his anger being taken over by fear for the skinnier boy. What the FCK was that? He asked silently, only to hear another crash while Izuku swore under his breath. Izuku! It's nothing, all right? Izuku was cut off by another crash, and Katsuki picked up his jacket when he heard the other boy SCK in a breath. Izuku! What the FCK is going on? He literally screamed, and the other let out a shaky sigh this time. Nothing, okay? Yashitoru-san is probably just in a bad dash. Where the FCK are you? You little wh. Katsuki went to the door with his jacket in hand, cursing when he realized that he had left his keys back in his room and ran to get them. Where the FCK are you right now? I don't need dash. I'm leaving my place now, I'll be there in dash. Bakugu, he stopped, taking in deep, uneven breaths as the greenette on the other side of the phone went silent once again. Everything is alright, and I can take care of myself, alright? I don't need you to come and be my hero, I can do well on my own. Do well on my own, the nerd said, but Katsuki couldn't count all the times that he had found him bleeding on the ground, how many bruises that he had seen on his body, how many times that he had failed to protect him. Izuku's definition of fine for himself was, I can keep on going, and only that killed him inside, made Katsuki want to take the greenette and take him to his place, cover him up in blankets and hugs and all the good stuff, because the boy whom he had come to call his brother deserved nothing less than the best. I want to be there for you, Izuku, he said softly, and the other just izzy in a breath at that. You might be fine, but I know that you are not okay. It's just, the greenette trailed off as Katsuki heard another crash from the other side. It's life, you know? Is it always going to go on like this? Those like Izuku, never getting accepted no matter how much they tried? Never getting love after everything that they had gone through? Did they not deserve it after all this time? But I am not weak, Katsuki knew he wasn't, but that didn't stop him from worrying, alright? I let you protect me for so long, so let me protect you this once, and don't try to get close to me in school, alright? Katsuki wanted to scream at the idiot, wanted to shake him till he came to his senses. But who was he to do so, when he had been one of them many others who had ruined his life in the past? Just pray that you'll be born with dash. He took in a deep breath instead. Alright, but if anyone goes too far and you dash. I know, Izuku cut him off, and Katsuki could almost imagine the small smile that must have been decorating the broccoli head's face at that moment. Thank dash. I deserved better. You hear me? I never deserved to live in this hole of a house with a freak like you. I deserve to live in a mansion, with any woman that I want. With female maids, not a pathetic freak. Open the demon door, you King little beatish. Open it or I swear dash. The line went dead, and Katsuki stared at it, watching as Izuku's name blinked at him again and again. Katsuki had hoped to be there better after they got into Yui together. He had hoped that everything would be better. If you want to be a hero that badly, there might be another way dash. He kicked his bed hard. FCK. The blonde screamed, before he threw all the stuff on his table to the floor. Just pray that you'll be born in your next life with a quirk, dash. You dumbasses. And take a swan dive off the top of the building. One of the frames on his desk, which had a photo of both him and Izuku, wobbled, and he watched as it fell down, the glass breaking into pieces. His breathing got even more frantic as he scrambled to where the frame had fallen, and he carefully picked it up. He was smiling, so was Izuku. They were only 3 years old in the photo, both of them sitting in front of their parents, Auntie Inko and old hag behind the nerd, while Uncle Sashi sat behind Katsuki along with his old man. The two of them were devoid of any scars, both mentally and physically, and Katsuki wished so much to turn back the time and go back to then, where nothing had been wrong and everything had been perfect. The broken glass dug into his hands, drawing out blood, but he didn't care, lost in a time when everything had been much better than it was now. Tsukachi Naomasa let out a deep sigh, as he fixed his hat, waiting for Toshinori to join him in his break. The cafe was mostly empty, probably since it was still working hours at that moment. Naomasa. He looked up at the sound of his friends, and let a small smile settle on his face as the blonde sat in front of him. Hey, Toshinori began with, both sounding and looking more tired than the last time he had seen him, how have you been holding on so far? The brunette hummed, as he mixed his coffee with the small coffee stick in his hand, better than you, I guess. What's wrong? Nothing much, he began, only for Tsukachi to flinch at his lie. Well, actually I wanted for you to look into one of my students, it is really important. Who is it? A boy named Izuku Midoriya. Alright, is he causing problems and stuff? Nedzu and the others are planning on expelling him at his smallest mistake. Tsukachi stared at his friend, his eyes growing wide. His records say that he is a problem maker, a monster, even a delinquent, a gang member, but he trailed off, making Tsukachi sigh. You don't believe them, do you? Toshinori raised his hand as he ordered chamomile tea for himself, before turning back at him. The boy, he is too good for anyone to even think those things about him. Naomasa watched, as the eldest of two of them sighed fondly, a small smile settling on his lips. He is a genius, kind, and is not afraid to run into trouble. He doesn't even think before he runs into trouble if it means that he can save someone. That small smile was enough for Naomasa to agree to look into the kid, but he didn't say a thing. He learned about my secret a couple of months ago, with a friend of his, Katsuki Bakugu, and none of them have even uttered a word about it to anyone. Yeah, he would need to look into this boy, maybe even his friend Bakugu. But it didn't sit right with him. Why would anyone say these things about someone as good as this kid, without a reason? Okay, he said before sighing once again. May I ask what his quirk is then? Naomasa, the boy is quirkless? The detective stared at his friend for a second, because somehow it all made sense now. Somehow he could see a part of the big picture thanks to that small information. He would need to look into a couple of files, would need some time to clear this kid's name if there were so many rumors, to the point where the principal of Yui wanted to expel the kid because of it. If the kid was innocent like Toshinori said, and if he did end up being expelled. Naomasa had solved so many suicide cases this last year, those that belonged to quirkless kids. He didn't want this boy to be the next case that he dealt with just because he was too late. All right, Naomasa began to say as he got up from his chair, then I should get going I guess. He was cut off when the number 1 pro hero took a hold of his hand and gave it a small squeeze. Thank you. Don't mention it. I have seen way too many suicide cases this last year from quirkless kids. So it will be a plus for me if he isn't the next suicide case that I need to solve. The pro hero in front of him stiffened for a second, before relaxing once again. I will do my best to protect the kid. I'm sure you will. With that, he left the cafe with a small smile on his face, walking to the center even though he had the rest of the day off. After all, he had a new case in his hands, and this one came with a time limit. Izuku. He let out a tired sigh, as he stared at his body that looked like a canvas. There wasn't a place unmarked on it, some paler and older than the others, some from last night. It had been his fault. All of it. He slowly rolled his shoulders as he picked up his fallen uniform from the ground and put it on his bed, before going and getting the bandages on his bedside table. Izuku wouldn't be able to cover up everything, only a couple of them, since he was running out of bandages, but it didn't really matter. He sat on his bed and slowly bandaged the cut on his upper leg, which he had stitched last night, before bandaging his right arm where another deep cut had been. Practice made perfect, and Izuku could be the best when it came to stitching and bandaging. The green-haired kid sighed, and wondered how he could hide the small patches of missing hair on his head, but settled on simply messing it up, so that it looked more like a messy bush than it normally did. After being satisfied with his appearance, he put on his black turtleneck before putting on his school uniform. The turtleneck thankfully hid the purple finger marks on his throat, but nothing could hide his scratchy voice after almost dying last night. He didn't talk much normally, which he guessed was a plus when he thought about it. Izuku was somewhat glad and amazed that the man had avoided scarring his face, even though he had been pretty drunk last night. He silently put on his shoes and picked up his backpack, being careful as he gently settled his backpack on his shoulders, and he left the house. It took him longer to get to the station, but he still got there before the train, which he was pretty relieved for. Like always, there was no one else but him, and he quickly went and sat on his usual place before taking out his hero analysis notebook. Izuku hadn't really had that much time to study the day before, thanks to everything, but he had still done a fair amount of research about his classmates when he had gone to the library and decided to look over them. He had yet to see his other teachers in action, so he still had blank space for their profiles. He opened the first page that he had dedicated to Class 1 as quirks only and skimmed the small entry before turning the page. Momo Yaoyorozu. At the top of the page, right underneath her name, stood a drawing of her in her hero costume. Yaoyorozu's quirk was absolutely amazing. But the way that the girl could create anything was also dangerous, not only for the society but also for herself, as she would most likely be seen as an easy prey and her kidnappers could ask her for anything. Aside from her quirk, she was amazing too, smart and strong, as if Cammy had designed her quirk just for her, as nothing else would have complemented her personality that much. Next to the information on her quirk, stood a couple of weapon designs that he had come up with. He guessed that it would be best if she got something to protect, like maybe a whip? Or something that had electricity and that could easily knock her opponents out. Just so that she wasn't utterly defenseless after eating all her stuff in her utility belt and after working so much. She would also most likely need a supplement other than her small snacks that he had gotten a glance at during the whole exercise. Things such as jelly packs, vitamin supplements, if she ever got stuck somewhere for a long time, and of course water packs. He guessed that they would be a bit heavy, but Yaoyorozu was not weak. He was sure that they wouldn't slow her down, and the more supplements that she had with her, the longer she could protect herself with it. Maybe rather than water packs and jelly packs, she could take small candies with her, as they would both be smaller and easier to carry and would help raise her blood sugar if she ever did need it. Or maybe small cookies. Granola bars could be much more logical when he thought about it. He skipped the next 2 pages, which were left blank. Uraraka's quirk anti-gravity. He had heard the others call her quirk that way, but he thought that it was something else, so he would call it float. A quirk that left way too many questions unanswered. Her quirk would have been so useful for rescue missions and would most likely also help her in stealth and all. He wondered if there was a limit to her quirk, if she could really make the things float away and away, or if they stopped after a time. Would something small that she floated return once again after she stopped using her quirk? Where was the ball that she had floated during the practical test, since she wasn't focusing on it at that moment? Would she be able to make herself float too? He had seen things only rise and float a couple of times during the exercise, and he knew for sure that her quirk couldn't be anti-gravity. Anti-gravity would have made those things float to the ceiling. Under that section, he had, once again, designed a utility belt. It would also most likely help her if she had things like dust, small objects, and such with her when she went out in missions, as it would have helped her with certain attacks along with self-protection. Her drawing in her hero costume stood on the next page, almond with a couple of heroes that were similar to her in different ways. He turned the page, coming to Hagecure's invisibility quirk. Hagecure's quirk just made him scowl once again, as he needed to remind himself that the girl was naked, which was utterly idiotic. Why had no one told her that she could use her hair to make an outfit for herself? That got him scoffing once again. Because of her being invisible, she fought naked, which also meant that she most likely had no way of defending herself against absolutely anything. She had no weapons, no clothes, absolutely nothing stopping her from getting injured during winter or even fire outbreaks, and she was most likely also fighting in bare feet, meaning more injuries. And if her blood was also invisible, then he was certain that she would be in danger. Sure, there were those like Recovery Girl, those who could simply heal others, but how would they know if she actually got injured? If she got hurt and started bleeding, and they simply didn't know. He turned to another page, coming to Ajuru's entry. Ajuru was the most powerful person that he saw out of the 4 of them, with his tail, which made him wonder how strong it was. Could it break through cement? Could it break through metal if the boy wanted? And how did the boy keep control of it in public places, since it was huge and all? He found himself being somewhat relaxed, as he knew that the boy was already skilled in different types of martial arts to be able to use his quirk much more efficiently. The boy might need extra balance though, because of his tail, or maybe even so more strength. His phone started ringing, and he sighed as he cancelled the alarm that rang on the stop before his. Izuku took his stuff and put them back in his backpack before standing up and moving through the sea of people and towards the doors to exit, hoping that he didn't have any problems today. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM. NKM. SKVK. The police, NT. ST. 1 Ya. Ma. Ta. TI. OU. MO. DK. EK. KK. RS. MS. KJ. HS. FT. ST. Teach. KB. MM. My. HS. Ya. 1B. NM, ST, TT, YE, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, RTPB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. IFO, HTT, TTD, KC. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't like Izuku or those that hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad. Dark italic and underlined ones, XX, those who are pretty obsessed with him, in somewhat of a stalker way, or it's simply toxic love. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yander about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. Izuku almost turned around, his flight instincts blaring up inside his head as soon as he saw the front of the entrance. He was not doing this, he couldn't do this, there was no way. Yet, he knew that if he didn't go to school now, there would be consequences for his actions. He already had his teacher's eyes focused on him. Izuku didn't need to pull any more attention to himself. Going to the side where no one could really see him, he took out his raincoat and school jacket before putting the latter in his backpack and putting on his raincoat once again. After having mastered the art of avoidance so well, he quickly slipped through the reporters as if he was a ghost, till he felt a hand close around his wrist and hissed at the pain that shot through his shoulder when he bumped into someone. "Hey, you!" The woman, who had pulled him back towards her, yelled, successfully pulling everyone's attention to the both of them just as she had pulled him back with a swift move. The door was just there, but it was almost impossible to escape the woman's literally iron grip, as one of her hands turned into metal. "Are you from the hero course? Can you tell me about your classes with all might?" A microphone was pushed towards his face with her other hand, which had turned into that of an octopus. He heard the click of a camera and felt his breath hitch. "Midoriya Izuku, can you tell us how your mother died? Was she the reason that feral demon died? It had been said that they were friends from a young age. Had all of it been fake from the beginning, or after your father left the two of you?" Another flash went off. "How does it feel to be the reason for Oyama Hikaru's downfall? To be the one who put him in the hospital dash? Are you going to be sent to juvie? Quirkless stage? The curse from God himself. Go to hell where you came from." Izuku was FK'd. He took in a deep breath, as he tried to bring himself back to the present. He tugged at his arm a bit. "Sorry, someone's microphone bumped into his shoulder. "Hey, you are the kid that the others talk about as a freak." "You mean the demon boy? That's him." Izuku took in another breath, feeling even more caged as time passed by as he tugged at his wrist once again. "Sorry, I need to get to class dash." Someone pulled him back by his backpack, and he fell back, his wrist still in the woman's iron grip. He looked up, and felt sick when he saw the manic grin on her face. "Get to class? How could Yui accept a quirkless kid? We are not allowed, but this monster is? Ridiculous." A mic was pushed to his face, and he looked up, the silhouette of the owner of the mic unrecognizable, but the grin on his face all too familiar. Some saw him as something to be feared, fearing the fact that he was the Mikumo, while for others, he was simply easy meat, something to play with, to push around. Because he was quirkless. "You are such a big inspiration to all those." Izuku could make out his grin, that got even bigger, quirkless. The way that the man said it, the way that he spit the word out made him glad that he hadn't really eaten anything that day, as he would have puked it out by now. The man's eyes trailed up and down his fallen form. "Could you give them some advice? Who you have SL point with to be accepted? Who you have foo dash?" A growl cut off the man, and every single person there flinched except himself. Izuku could never flinch to that voice, not after all this time, not now. What the hell are you extras doing? The explosive blonde asked, and all of them straightened up, while the woman who had him in a vice grip pulled his hand to her side, hiding her actions from Katsuki. Wait, you're the son of the feral demon. Izuku couldn't see the blonde's face from where he was trapped, but could still hear the grin in his voice, could imagine the way that his lips curled up. "Damn, I am. How does it feel? Move." Katsuki cut through the crowd, no one even daring to touch him as he walked closer and closer his way. Izuku felt a small smile settle on his lips as the blonde looked down at him. "What the FCK are you doing, sitting on your SS like that? Do you want to be trampled to death or something? Bakuga-san, what do you think of the fact that Mikumo is in the same school as you are? And how does it feel to have the #1 pro hero teaching you?" Katsuki ignored the woman and pulled her hand up in the air instead, the one which was holding on to him. Izuku was up on his feet in seconds, as she was forced to let go of him. "Threatening a teen? Using your quirk on him? I bet you know which laws you are breaking here." It was loud as he said that, and Izuku had no doubt that everyone had heard them. "And for my opinion on those two questions he stopped for a second, and Izuku saw him glance at him for a moment. "He is just like the other extras in one." A grin took over his features, and for the second one, the best simply deserve to be trained by the best. And with that, Katsuki pulled him by his uninjured wrist and into the safety of the school gates. It made him feel grateful somewhat that Katsuki had listened to him yesterday and had still run in to help him in those situation. "Thank you, Katsuki," he muttered, before going on ahead, not seeing the sad smile that took over his childhood friend's features. "Of course, nerd. Izuku, good work on yesterday's combat training." Aizawa-sensei began to say, "I saw the video and results. You guys are all talented, so don't let yourselves get swayed away by your emotions during combat like a kid." Izuku looked down, realizing what the man had said was meant for him. "Now let's get down to homeroom business." That was enough to make the whole mood of the class dampen, their sensei continued. "Sorry about the late notice, but today, I'll have you decide on a class representative." The whole class cheered on at that, and Izuku felt a smile take over his features at their excitement. It was nice how the tense mood was destroyed in a matter of seconds. Izuku held back a chuckle by the way that the whole mood rose up once again. Mina, the pink-haired girl, raised her hands as a smile took over her features. "Pick me," she said. "I want to be class president." Kaminari also raised his hands at that, along with others. "Me too. I want to do it too. It's a job made for M-. I'll be the leader. My manifesto is for shorter skirts." He glanced back at the grape-haired boy, raising his eyebrows, who then looked sheepish. "Well, only if the girls want it too. Let me do it." "Silence, please," Ida began, making everyone listen to him. "It's a job with the serious responsibility of leading others. It is not a job for just anyone who wants to do it. It is a calling that requires the trust of those around you. If we want to use democracy to decide on a true leader, then we should hold an election to choose one." Izuku let out a soft chuckle at how high the navy-haired boy's hand was and looked away, knowing that he had nothing to do with this conversation. As soon as he got his paper, Izuku wrote down Yaoyorozu's name and gave it away. He had normally planned on voting for Katsuki but decided against it, knowing that the boy was cut out for it, but he would most likely be irritated after some time and would scare the others instead of leading them. He sighed and looked away as the class decided on the class rep. In the end, half of the class had gotten one vote, while Mineta, Uraraka, Kirishima, Aoyama, Tsuyu, Shinso, Todoroki and Tokoyami had gotten no votes at all. He sighed and held back the urge to hit his head against the desk as he saw the three winners that had gotten more than one vote. Katsuki and Ida had gotten 2 votes, Yaoyorozu had gotten 4 votes, and he sighed. How the hell had he managed to get 4 votes? Just how? He looked back at the ones that had gotten 0 votes and felt his eyes twitch. Izuku simply knew, he knew who exactly had voted for him, and that somehow made his eyes twitched. Kami, this wasn't happening. Surprising results, 2 with 4 votes? Izuku agreed to him, it was surprising results. The pro hero stared at the board for a while, before sighing. Okay, it was going to be all right. Izuku could simply say that he resigned from his spot as the one with the most votes and, does anyone want to withdraw? Say it now, or don't say a thing till the end of the year. Izuku raised his hand at the same time Katsuki did. Do you wish to withdraw then? Izuku nodded, feeling himself relax somewhat, as if the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders, and now he only had to carry the universe. They voted once again, and this time all three somehow got 5 votes as they had been not allowed to vote, while 3 of their classmates simply returned an empty paper. I'm too tired to deal with any of this. The 3 of you sort this out between each other. There needs to be 1 class president, 1 representative, and 1 extra class president in case the class president is absent. As soon as he finished talking, he reached down and took a hold of his yellow sleeping bag that he took with him everywhere, and exited the classroom just in time for Midnight Sensei to enter. Katsuki had been young back then, only 4 years old, when Hisashi Midoriya had been killed, and the society had been rid of another villain. There wasn't much that he could remember of him, but he had known that he had been no villain, just a citizen that hadn't been scared of standing up to save citizens in need, while not hiding his quirk that had been deemed villainous by those who he had saved again and again. The first thing that had been carved into his mind, surprisingly enough, had been his mask along with his kind smile. The 2 of those things had never really existed at the same time, but still, when he thought about the man who he had come to call his uncle, that was the image that appeared in front of his eyes. His kind smile decorated by his freckles, black mask with forest green eyes peeking through them, and his white curly locks. The rest was black. Black turtlenecks, black combat boots, black, simply everything black. The color black had somehow become something that was associated with the dead hero after a while, to the point where his late mother had once cried away in her room once, when Izuku had been dressed all in black. He had thought that she had cried, because Izuku had reminded her of Uncle Hisashi, but that hadn't been the reason why. Black was the color of the night, it was the color of secrets, and the only thing that Izuku, his brother, could use to hide his scars in the middle of the eye, in front of too many eyes that watched his every move. His mother had known that Izuku had been getting bullied at school way before he had realized it, and had made things even worse for the greenette. Purple, blue, red, those were the colors that Izuku was trying to hide, and somehow, it made Katsuki wonder even more about the other scars. He knew that some of them belonged to him. Some of them belonged to the 2 extras that he used to hang out with once. Some of them to their teachers, some to those that had seen Izuku as a small fry in the past, and the most recent ones belonged to the F-cur that was fostering him at the moment. The same F-cur that Katsuki longed to choke to death, the same bastard that kept Katsuki awake at night, because Izuku was stuck in the same house as him, and Katsuki had no way of protecting him from so far away. He had been the very one to start the nightmare that was Izuku's life, and now he couldn't end it no matter how much he wanted to. If he could have his way, he would kill anyone that even looked at his brother the wrong way, would carve out the eyes that dared to look down at him, would break the hands that had dared to create marks on his sun-kissed skin, would cut out the tongues that had made all those wrong accusations over him, and Katsuki would gut the man who had been the very last person to give Izuku false hope, the man that had opened his eyes fully to their cruel world that they were living him. If Katsuki could have had his way, he would have become a villain long ago, because he would have already killed all those F-curs. It was cruel to think like this, but Izuku brought out both the best and the worst things in him. He brought out his desire to save others, his desire to become a better person, a hero, and yet he also brought out his desire to destroy society, the very one who had failed the 2 of them again and again, Izuku more than him. The bell rang, and the lunch break brought the shark-like boy with it. "Hey man," the boy with razor-sharp teeth said as he leaned on his desk, "wanna eat together this break?" It amazed him how he had been asking the same question over and over the last 4 days, and yet never got tired of it. He looked around, sighing when he didn't see Izuku among the others. Katsuki simply got off, and the redhead followed after him, radiating literal sunshine. He wondered if Izuku would ever radiate sunshine like Shark Boy did, if he could go back to the way he had been when he had only been 6 years old. Even if he did, would Katsuki be allowed to bask in his light? When he had been one of the very ones to put it out? "Hey, Bakugurite, he sighed as a pink-haired girl came up to them, a smile plastered on her face. She reminded him of cotton candy. Katsuki didn't like cotton candy. Hey Mina, Redhead said, and Katsuki tuned out the rest, not caring as the other three followed after the two of them. They laughed around with each other, commenting on how disappointing it was to learn that Evangeline the white hero was in fact not dating Lucifer, while also talking about the most random things. Katsuki simply ignored all of it, knowing that it was only a matter of time till they also left, when they realized that he was not worth being around. Between the fury that was buried deep inside his heart, and the hate that burned harder and harder each passing second, Katsuki was simply not a good hero material at the end of the day. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH, HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The police, NT, SD. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, R2PB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. FO, HTT, TTD, KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't like Izuku or those that hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are in the Izuku protection squad. Dark italic and underlined ones, XX, those who are pretty obsessed with him, in somewhat of a stalker-y way, or it's simply toxic love. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are Yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. Lunchtime found him lying under a tree, his eyes closing off as he fought back the urge to simply close his eyes and drift off into nothingness. Izuku was hungry, and no matter how much he wanted to deny it, as long as his stomach growled at his every moving, there was nothing that he could actually do other than eat. His last meal had been the day before, when he and All Might had eaten together, and in the past it would have been enough, but not now. He had been making sure to have at least one meal a day, had started on taking care of his skinny body a month before he had taken the entrance exam. He hadn't wanted to lose even more muscle, and now his body was too spoiled, not really being able to stand still or go a day without food. He could maybe go to the cafeteria, maybe even eat lunch rush's food. Izuku got up from his place with a tired sigh, his canvas of a body aching as he did so. He knew that he would need to check up on the scars before class, and used that as a reason to head towards the cafeteria. It didn't take that long to get to his destination, and Izuku found himself wishing that he hadn't even bothered coming here in the first place. A never-ending line stood in front of the cafeteria, students nudging each other, kicking, pulling, and punching. He turned around and decided against jumping into a pool filled with piranhas, and took out his water bottle instead, heading towards the small water fountain at the corner to fill it. After that, he would go to the bathroom, look over his scars, and maybe after everything he could. His thoughts got cut off by the blaring of the alarms, and he essayed in a deep breath, hugging his water bottle to his chest as students started to swarm out of the cafeteria. "Run!" the voice of his mother screamed inside his head. "Izuku, my baby dash." It wasn't long before the crowd ended up swallowing him too. Nito found himself being irritated by the whole chaos that surrounded him, disgusted even as he took in the sight of the freaking out students that were supposed to be the future of hero society. No teacher was in sight, and principal had yet to inform them of the situation, so it was obvious that it wasn't that big of a deal in the beginning. He sighed, as he simply leaned against the wall, and took in the surrounding chaos. It was funny how disheveled all of them looked, how they pushed and pulled and tore at each other. Only a couple of others looked as calm as he was, but they soon got lost in the middle of the flood of people. He probably should have done something but didn't. Really want to bother? Besides, a boy from Class 1A had seemed like he had a plan. His rival class, Class 1A, filled with spoiled brats who were too full of themselves to care about even joining the opening ceremony. Nito didn't care, not really, but he still found himself scanning the place with the earlier Quirk that he had copied from a pink net, to see if any of his classmates were in danger. He wasn't sure what to make of them, but it would be a shame if any students from any class died on the first couple of days. Nito sighed, and started to turn around, just when his eyes landed on a bundle of green at the corner of the wall that was across from him, sandwiched by the crowd and the wall. His first reaction was to cackle, and write this moment to a corner in his mind, for when he needed to laugh and remind himself just how pathetic Class 1A was. It would be carved into his mind, but not for the reason that he thought it would be. As soon as he zoomed in on the boy, Nito felt his breath get caught in his throat, as he realized that the boy was shaking like a leaf, struggling to breath. The greenette was having a panic attack. He didn't know why, and he didn't know why, but his body acted on itself as soon as his mind registered that, and soon enough his arms were filled with panicking greenette as he picked him up, covering his eyesight with his jacket, and pushed the two of them into the WCs. It was so childish. How did he aspire to be a hero if the smallest chaos? He stopped as he took in the sight of the boy's thorn cloths, before taking in the sight of the scar on his chest and the finger marks on his neck that were the shade of rotten plums. He almost forgot to breath as he truly looked at the boy, looked at him as another 15-year-old and felt his chest ache for the greenette. A 15-year-old sat in front of him, trying to cover his exposed skin, the finger marks on his chest and the scars that painted a rotten picture for Nito, while also trying to hold his bandages together. Nito wondered if the bandages held the boy together as much as the boy held them together, with how tightly the greenette held onto it. The blond boy softened his voice as he crouched in front of the greenette, letting a soft smile settle on his lips. "Hey," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. This felt so foreign to him. Monoma Nito wasn't soft, he wasn't made to be soft. He was. The boy let out a whimper, before bending forward a bit as he started coughing all of a sudden. "I am so sorry," the greenette cried out in between deep breaths, tears streaming down his face. I won't lose it. I won't lose it ever again." Nito watched as the kid raised the water bottle that had fallen on the ground at some point, and held it to his chest, his finger going white from the pressure. The blonde avoided looking at the many marks on the boy's skin, feeling as though he had intruded enough already, and sat on the ground. "It's please," the greenette begged, and it was such a heart-wrenching sound that Nito hardly held back the bile that rose up his throat. "I won't ever make you waste anything on me ever again." Mother F. Kerr, what was Nito supposed to say? How was he supposed to bring the greenette back to the moment? He wasn't soft, he wasn't made soft like most other were. Nito closed his eyes for a mere second. He had felt fury towards Class 1A ever since the beginning, and the hatred bubbled up even more every single time, but how could he ever be angry at the boy in front of him, when he was already this miserable? Nito didn't need to make things even worse for him. He was harsh around the edges, he was mean and cruel and manipulative, he didn't know how to be soft. He didn't know how to act when someone was having it. Nito bolted forward towards the greenette, watching as he flinched away for a moment, but didn't let himself stop for even a second as he pressed on the freckled boy's hands that were holding on tightly to his water bottle. The boy's eyes grew bigger for a second, and Nieto felt him relax somewhat. "I don't know the beast-star that you were talking about, but he isn't here. You are at UE in one of the bathrooms. Your water bottle is in your hands, and you didn't lose it." The more traumatized of the two's eyes got focused somewhat, so Nito took one of his hands and slapped them in the cold bathroom floor, watching as the kid exhaled in a deep breath. The cold always helped, he knew from experience after all. "UE," the greenette murmured, and Nito nodded. "Yeah." "The press managed to get in and I pulled you here after a couple minutes the chaos started, since you were having a dash." He stopped, wondering if it would be right to call this a panic attack. It could have as well been an anxiety attack or a PTSD attack, maybe even a flashback. You were having an anxiety attack. Is that what they are called? Yeah, Nito frowned. You didn't know? I'm sorry that I bothered you with this. He frowned even harder at that, and combed his blonde hair with his hands. He sure as hell didn't sound like a bastard that was full of himself, maybe even the exact opposite of it. Did the class start yet? In a bit. I need to go. Nito quickly reached out, and got a hold off his arm, trying his best to ignore the way that he flinched. Like this? He asked and sighed as the boy's eyes shook as he took in his outfit, his hands flying to his neck to cover up his bruise. Don't worry, I might be mean, but not mean enough to go ahead and tell others of your scars. Nito began and picked up his jacket from where it had fallen on the ground. But it might still be for the best if you put on my jacket on the way to Recovery Girl. I'm not planning on dash. Oh, you sure that you want to have that kind of conversation right now and be more late to class? I can't. There is no I can't. To this, it is yes or a yes question. No, I'll be going to class before the others and changing into my PE uniform before class starts. And then what? You plan on only wearing that for this year. I'll manage somehow. That was not an option. We're going to Recovery Girl's office. What's it to you? The way that the greenette growled, his voice coming out hoarse and filled with hate. Nito took a step back at that. It took a moment, but when he came back to his senses it was his turn to snarl, as he got in the injured boy's space, making him back away a bit. I don't need to worry about you during lessons. Are you that selfish that you will go make others worry about you? Right after those words left his mouth, he knew that he had been cruel, but ignored it and sighed, once again, before nudging the boy with his jacket. Nito watched as the other boy also sighed and put his jacket on, somehow being swallowed up by it. The boy took a deep breath, and Nito watched as every ounce of emotion left the boy's face and a blank look took its place. It made him both scared of and scared for the boy. Thank you. Minoma Nito. Thank you, Minoma-san. The greenhead sighed once again. I shall go to Recovery Girl's office now. And I am supposed to go to class and leave you like this? I'll return your jacket to your class when I can. He let out a fake gasp, bringing his hand to his chest. So you do plan to leave me? Well, you don't know me. I still gave you my jacket. You can take it back right now if you want. And you plan to leave the bathroom like that? The greenhead sighed once again before looking at him with shielded and tired eyes that were begging to Nito to just give up. Sadly, Nito wasn't that much of a quitter. Minoma-san, I'm not who you think that I am. You helped me and said that you wouldn't tell anyone about this, so thank you very much, but being with me won't bring you anything. There are rumors about me, rumors that make everyone wary about me, and I don't want someone that helped me to be caught up in it. With that, Nito watched as the boy left the toilet. It took him a moment to take in everything that the boy had said before he felt a smirk cover his face, realizing who the greenhead had been. He ran out of the bathroom and ran towards Midoriya, who was slowly walking in the wrong direction towards the Recovery Girl's office. Hey, Midoriya-kun, he yelled after the boy, not caring about what others might think. When had he cared anyway? Izuku Midoriya, the rumored devil, the demon who was responsible for way too many cruel things. Nito ran up to the little devil. The greenhead had a troubled look on his face as he looked at him, and Nito sighed. Minota-sen, Midoriya began to say before sighing, why? It was funny, the look that the greenette was sending him now, as if he was scared for his mental health. Yeah, Nito didn't really have that, so the greenette didn't really need to worry. I had a feeling that you didn't know which way Recovery Girl's office was, and I guess I was right. After all, no one in Class 1A would be able to find anywhere by themselves. Do you have a grudge against my class or something? I don't like anyone in Class 1A. They are all so full of themselves, always feeling so sure of themselves. Nito answered, and the green-haired boy looked at the ceiling. Well, Midoriya began, I get where you come from. Nito turned towards him, feeling something akin to wonder as he looked at the boy who had such a sad expression in his eyes, who looked like he had already given up. He wondered how many times he had already seen that expression on the boy's face, and found that he didn't ever want to see it ever again. It didn't fit the other boy. Nito smirked. I think, he waited till the greenette turned towards him, that we are going to be really good accomplices. Midoriya sighed for the nth time. I thought that you said you hated everyone in class 1A? Well, I can make exceptions. I also think that I told you about the rumors? Well, I don't think that they matter as long as they are wrong, do they? Well, they mattered to everyone else, so Midoriya stopped and looked at Nito, glaring at him. So I was right, they are just baseless rumors. Does that even matter? Rumors can ruin someone's life. I don't really want to ruin the life of someone who helped Dash. Well, you won't. Nito sighed as they turned another corner, their destination now in their eyesight. A lot of others are already wary of me, thanks to my quirk and loud personality. I'm sorry, that's not fair to you. That's how it is, no need to have any hard feelings about it. Nito glanced at Midoriya. Why don't you tell others that they are just rumors? Well, we are not that close to tell each other about that, are we? Stingy B starred. Izuku sighed after 10 seconds of awkward silence. It's surprising how many things have happened in only a couple of days. Midoriya said, and Nito found himself agreeing, as he would have never expected to meet the so-called fake demon this early on. But it still somewhat felt like the best thing that had happened ever since school had begun. For the both of them. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH. HYPM. NKM. SKVK. The police, NT. ST. 1 Ya. Ma. Ta. TI. OU. MO. DK. EK. KK. RS. MS. KJ. HS. FT. ST. Teach. KB. MM. My. HS. Ya. 1B. NM. ST. TT. Ye. SK. YK. KT. JH. Other students, MT. NHT. MH. Pro Heroes, STGT. YTML. RUM. KH. EFMJ. KSO. TTFG. Training Camp ARC. R2PB. TSR. YCT. SSM. KI. 8 Bullets ARC. SSN. KBG. Villains, Higres. TCS. IFO. HTT. TTD. KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't like Izuku or those that hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are pretty much in the Izuku protection squad. Dark italic and underlined ones, XX, those who are pretty obsessed with him, in somewhat of a stalker way, or it's simply toxic love. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yandere about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story. Izuku. He took in a deep breath as someone called them from the inside. Izuku had notes on her, just like any other hero, and if it had been anyone else, he wouldn't have even considered going to them after the rude awakening that he had had. For the last 2 weeks, ever since he had gotten to Yui, his teachers hadn't been that kind towards him, had ever not cared about him, or had cared too much in the wrong way to the point it had felt suffocating. Izuku should have written off anyone, any hero, of being capable of harboring kindness for someone like him by now, but whenever he thought about it, somehow the face of Auntie Mitsuki along with Yune-san appeared in front of his eyes. Izuku didn't think that he could write off any hero after his first meeting with All Might, so he told himself that he would wait a bit more, and that no matter how dark things looked right now, the storm would pass one day. He just had to hold on till then, had to believe that it would pass one day. The greenette fixed his clothes, or well, tried to at least. He wasn't sure how he really looked, but somehow understood why Monoma had helped him. Too many things were visible, out in the open for anyone to see. Anyone could make out the demons of his past if they just looked. People can simply be blind sometimes, my love. The clothes would need to be thrown out. Izuku couldn't fix it, not when it had simply been melted, and not when it was stained with this much blood. Oh, He hadn't realized that he had started bleeding. He looked up, to the door that was still closed shut, and glanced at Monoma, who was looking at him with his hands settled on the door handle. Izuku frowned, and opened his mouth, only to get cut off once again by the sound of something falling at the other side of the room. It hit him, all at once, that Monoma had been waiting for his permission to open the door. He hadn't rushed him, hadn't really done anything. He had waited for him. Not knowing what he should feel about that fact, he slowly nodded, and watched as Monoma slowly pushed it down. He was so slow, as his eyes never left Izuku's, as if he was watching for any signs of discomfort or hesitance. It was weird, the blonde had been the one to push him to come here, so why would he be willing to stop now? The warm feeling that bloomed inside his chest was both foreign, yet welcome at the same time. "What are you two here for now?" the elderly woman said, annoyed, still not having looked up at them. It made him take a step back for a moment, as he wondered if it was too late to leave. The only thing that stopped him was the gentle hand that settled on his wrist, and how Monoma was now shielding the door, keeping him from leaving. So it was too late. "Miss Recovery Girl." Monoma's voice was cheerful, his smile sharp enough to cut through anything, and the weight on his wrist soft. The old woman peeked out from the other side of the curtains, and the two boys watched as her mouth parted slightly, and the folder in her hands dropped to the floor. Izuku found it safer to look down on his shoes, feeling uncomfortable with the way that the woman was looking at him. It wasn't menacing, not really, it was just an emotion that Izuku didn't come across that frequently. He didn't know how to react to something like that. It might be better if I leave," he muttered, and that was all it took for Monoma to take a step closer to him, while Recovery Girl simply scoffed. "Such nonsense," she said firmly, and he hardly held back a flinch. "Come sit down and let me take a look at you." She said it if it was so easy, and maybe it was that easy for anyone else, but not for him. He glanced at Monoma, who wouldn't let him leave before the woman took a look at him, and then at Recovery Girl, who looked ready to chase after him to make sure that he was all right if it ever came down to it. There wasn't a way out of this, was there? Izuku felt his mouth form a thin line at that. "I need to ask something before that. What can be more important than Dash? Are there any cameras in this room?" It seemed that that was not what she had been expecting, as the lines on her forehead became more apparent at that. "No cameras." "Can you swear secrecy?" he asked next, and felt Monoma squeeze his wrist softly. It surprisingly felt comforting. "That everything will stay in this room?" "Yes." Izuku had read a few articles on the woman before and knew that she normally didn't hate those like him, who were orphans or simply quirkless, that she respected her patients and their private lives. He knew that he could trust her when it came to that. Izuku had also thought that he could have trusted Eraserhead. He had thought that he could have trusted heroes, but he had guessed wrong. He couldn't trust anyone. He took in a deep breath. It was a leap of faith, but how many times till he finally fell? Izuku didn't think he could do this now. He didn't think he was ready, but he never really was. Was he? Monoma, All Might, Tuya, Katsuki, they had all been leaps of faith. He hadn't been ready to have them in his life, for them to become a part of this curse, for them to get caught up in it, but they simply hadn't cared, had they? The circumstances had forced him into trusting them, and now they were forcing him to trust in Recovery Girl, who had already seen too much. And she knew, maybe better than the other four, what these scars meant, what they implied. "I am obliged to give all necessary details concerning your health to your guardians, but other than that, I can say that there will be no information given to your teachers." It was a good proposal, but not good enough. All of a sudden, Izuku felt exposed to the world, and found himself wondering how far he would need to jump this time. Would he make the jump? Or would he simply fall down and break into pieces? It had only been a couple of days, and he had already failed way too many times in too many categories. It had been optimistic, he knew, but he had somewhat hoped for everything to change completely. He hadn't thought that the rumors would disappear, that he would be seen as an equal, but he had at least hoped for the adults to be different, because they weren't just adults, they were heroes. He had hoped to actually have friends and had thought that at some point maybe the two of them, Kaken Katsuki and him, could achieve their dreams and become a hero duo. Izuku had hoped to finally feel like he belonged somewhere. And yet instead, he guessed that he should have known from too long ago, that someone like Izuku couldn't belong anywhere. His thoughts scattered as the blonde next to him let out a soft sigh. These last years, the only person who had truly cared for him, had been there for him, had been Katsuki and Tuya, and the both of them didn't know what it meant to say no. Most of the time, the duo weighed the options themselves and chose for Izuku. Monoma was the complete opposite. All three of them cared, but somewhat Monoma was much more patient and directing. The blonde was patient, forgiving, and left the control in his hands. He was somewhat controlling, sure, but he gave him options, not all of them favorable, and made him choose out of those choices. Monoma voiced the odds, and laid it in front of the two of them, making it easier to choose out of all of them. Katsuki knew what he would choose, so there was never really any need to communicate between the two of them. We are the same. The both of us, Monoma and I. That fact hit him like a brick, and suddenly he felt somewhat bad that he had let Monoma get involved with him. Izuku watched from the corner of his eyes, as Monoma reached out and placed his hand on the door handle. I'm going to seal a dash. Izuku wasn't sure what took over him, what side of him led to his next actions, and yet he reached out and grabbed onto the other's sleeve. His eyes grew big as he quickly let it fall down, but Monoma didn't ignore it, and took another step back towards him, getting away from the door. Or, the blonde exclaimed as a grin took over his features, oh no! I feel a killer headache coming. I think that I might need to just stay here a bit longer than planned. He had known Monoma for less than an hour. Izuku had known the blonde boy for less than an hour. How could someone see through him so well? How was Monoma able to listen to his requests as if they were nothing at all? Could someone like this exist? How was he even sure that all of this was real? Maybe, just maybe, he had died and no one had found him. Just maybe, this was all just a passing dream. Because it was too good to be true. Slowly, yet sure of himself, Izuku raised his hand to his arm and pinched himself. It hurt, as if he had been bit by a small bug. But it hurt nonetheless. Izuku gulped and looked at the woman, whose gaze had yet to leave his body. Her eyes searching for anything that she might be missing. One problem at a time, he reminded himself. One problem at a time. Monoma's hand was back on his wrist, the one that was pinching his arm, as he gave it another soft squeeze. Miss. Recovery Girl looked up at him, and their eyes met. No teacher will hear about anything that I tell you here? She cleared her throat before starting to talk. As long as you don't want it to get out, yes. However, if it is a bullying incident, I can inform the teachers on your request and will highly encourage you to inform your teachers. But if I don't want any of the teachers to hear about this, my guardian will be the only person to hear about this? Yes, as they dash. What if I give you a reason that you can't tell them? He rushed out, cutting the woman off in the process. He held back a flinch as Monoma's grip grew stronger. Her mouth clamped shut, and her head tilted to the side, her eyes filled with disbelief. Izuku didn't know just how he knew, but he knew that the disbelief was not directed towards him. No, it was directed at everything. Just not him. The old pro hero seemed tired, and he found that he could almost make out the exhaustion that came with years of risking her life to protect those in need, of worrying, and working on the front lines. Izuku shouldn't be doing this, he realized with a heavy heart. Monoma and Recovery Girl didn't deserve this. They didn't deserve Izuku to pull them into his own problems. What if they told someone? What if he had to leave his new guardian? This had been the best one yet, Izuku. He didn't think that he wanted to leave, not when he knew that if he did, he wouldn't be able to attend Yui any longer. He took in a deep breath, he would get a new uniform and get to class. If he always stayed in 1A or the garden outside, he wouldn't see Monoma nor Recovery Girl for a long time. They would forget about him, Izuku wouldn't mean anything to them and their words wouldn't have any effect on him anymore. He just had to get out as fast as he could. Izuku needed to escape somewhat. Why had he reached out to Monoma in the first place? Why had he held on to his sleeve? Young boy dash. Do you know where I can get a new inform? He cut her off, and watched as her eyes cleared off, somewhat. What? I need to get to class soon, I am afraid that Aizawa-sensei will write me as absent. This time, when Monoma gripped his wrist even tighter, he did flinch. Get to class? Midoriya, do you even hear what you are saying? He ignored the blonde. I'm sorry, miss, but it is something between my guardian and me, and it is something only my guardian can dash. Young boy. Between how hard the woman's voice sounded, all warmth erased from it, and Monoma's harsh grip on his wrist, he wasn't sure what to do. His big green eyes met Recovery Girl's determined ones, and he hardly held back a sigh. Nito had had his share of bad influences, had had his share of disgusting FCKs who had taken in so many kids, so many others who were like him, so when his uncle had shown up at his doorsteps, claiming that he wanted to look after him, he had said yes, even though he hadn't been so sure at the beginning. Sekijiro had probably been the best thing to ever happen to him, who had been his savior. For so long, Monoma had despised those with strong quirks, those who were held above others just because of the way they had been born. Even though he had met so many other kids as troubled as himself, those who were written off simply as villainous, he had never met someone quirkless. He had never met someone like Midoriya, and knew just why, as he took in his words and the marks on his once clear skin. Most didn't make it as far as Midoriya had. He softened his grip as he felt the other flinch, and glanced at Recovery Girl. Did you hear? They say that he killed one of his guardians. They say he is like a rabid animal. Charles Kim took him under his arms, took him in his mansion and let him start anew ignoring the rumors. He put him in the best schools and gave him everything. And for what? Mikuma broke his rib cage, sent the man to the hospital. Monoma glanced at the boy one more time, took in his twitching hands, the permanent scars that decorated his skin and the hand mark on his neck. Purple fingers. Midoriya's voice wasn't crackwhy, but how would he know when this was the first time he had really talked to the greenette? Monoma took in his skinny and scrawny figure, and the eye bags under his eyes. He looked worse than he had been back in the bathroom, and Monoma realized with a sinking feeling that they were literally forcefully skinning off the layers to what Izuku Midoriya was. Didn't like this. No one deserved this. Monoma wouldn't force the other to reveal his secrets to the two of them. No, Midoriya had to choose the timing, he had to be ready to do it, he had to be the one to choose who to tell and who he wouldn't say a thing to. I'm sorry, he found himself blurting out, and watched as Midoriya looked at him with his big eyes. Miss Recovery Girl, can I maybe talk to Dash? She was out of the office in a matter of seconds. Izuku, I need you to be honest with me. Honesty. Izuku wasn't sure when had been the last time that he had heard that word. It was simply no longer in his vocabulary anymore. Our Dash? Izuku found himself frowning when Monoma's hand left his wrist, his voice cracking as he looked him in the eye. Are you ready to do this? Izuku wasn't sure what the other meant. If you are not, you can just leave, you can go home and come tomorrow morning, acting like none of this ever happened. The other took in a deep breath, combing his fingers through his hair. It needs to be done in your own time. You need to be the one to choose the timing. I should have never forced you to dash. You didn't force me though. Izuku cut him off, and watched as the other's head shot up at that, and besides, he trailed off, I am pretty used to being pushed to make choices from my circumstances by now. Still dash. It needed to happen at one point, I guess. Izuku cut him off, before softly sliding down his sleeves so that the newly made handprint was no longer visible. He wasn't sure just why Monoma was being this careful with him, just why he was acting so carefully around him. It somehow clashed with his personality from back then in the bathroom. The boy opened his mouth to say something, only to change his mind as he closed it once again. Monoma scoffed. Midoriya, he began, I am pretty when it comes to this kind of stuff. I am harsh around the edges. I can sometimes be cruel with my words, uncaring, and am quick to forget. I can be manipulative, controlling, or pushing, so I need you to tell me when I pass a line, when I go too far, alright? I need you to be able to tell me to stop. Wasn't everyone, Monoma said it as if it was a bad thing, but Izuku couldn't remember ever meeting anyone that wasn't like that. You are not passing a line right now, he said instead of voicing his thoughts, and could almost see the way that the other's shoulders relaxed. That's good to know, I guess. He wasn't sure just how many times he thought about it, but Izuku really affected him no matter what happened. Has anyone seen Midoriya this break? Probably, no one would have realized his absence except Katsuki if they hadn't been paired up to do a project. Izuku affected him, in both the best and the worst way possible. Katsuki hadn't even realized that his hand had been shaking when the girl next to him placed his on top of it. "You alright?" He looked at Pinky and then at Sharp Teeth, and pulled his hand away, letting out a low growl. "Mph." She made a face that reminded him of a chipmunk, but Katsuki didn't really care. It was then that Peacock-sensei's phone started ringing, only for a frown to settle on his face. "I need to get this, little listeners, work on the project while I am gone." Katsuki team was the first to finish, and he was the first to leave class, his phone next to his ear as he rang Izuku's phone. One part of her had been anxious, as she had left the two boys behind in the infirmary. Her worries hadn't been because she was afraid of the two trashing the place, not even close. Chio was scared that they would leave while she called Eraserhead and Vlad. As it rang, she thought of the way that the boy had been shaking, his words ringing in her head as she forced herself to calm down. It had been a long time ever since she had lost her cool the last time. But she guessed that it was normal, to be expected somewhat, because this was a child in front of her, and with the scars that she had already caught sight of, he had had his share of trauma that was heavier than any ordinary hero's. Chio knew what she had to do, but first, she needed to contact both of their teachers, to tell him that their so-called demon was in the infirmary. Nedzu plus Recovery Girl, N. CS Arch. Teachers, 2 a.m. SAH, HYPM, NKM, SKVK. The police, NT, ST. 1 Ya, Ma, Ta, TI, OU, MO, DK, EK, KK, RS, MS, KJ, HS, FT, ST, Teach, KB, MM, My, HS, Ya. 1B, NM, ST, TT, Ye, SK, YK, KT, JH. Other students, MT, NHT, MH. Pro Heroes, STGT, YTML, RUM, KH, EFMJ, KSO, TTFG. Training Camp ARC, R2PB, TSR, YCT, SSM, KI. 8 Bullets ARC, SSN, KBG. Villains, Higres, TCS. IFO, HTT, TTD, KCA. The crossed out ones, XX, are those that have yet to meet him. The italic crossed out ones, XX, are those that don't like Izuku or those that hate Izuku. The normal ones, XX, are those that are just neutral about his existence. The italic ones, XX, are those that wonder about him, those who think about him a lot. The dark ones, XX, are his friends, those that have come to somewhat care about him. The dark italic ones, XX, are those who are pretty much in the Izuku protection squad. Dark italic and underlined ones, XX, those who are pretty obsessed with him, in somewhat of a stalker way, or it's simply toxic love. The dark, italic, bolded ones, XX, are those that are yander about him and those that will most likely give off a little bit of a stalker-like vibe throughout the story.